Everybody okay for me to call this to order?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
It's 7:03 p.m. on June 17th, 2020. Call this meeting of the Brattleboro Development Review Board to order. I'm going to start the meeting in a different fashion than what some people who are used to this are accustomed to, because we have several things that I want to announce so that we can effectively use what I'm probably going to call a million times Zoom, but is really GoToMeeting. So first, everyone who's
Here I am.
Hello.
Yes. Hello.
Hi. Sorry.
Everybody here should be muted unless they wish to speak. The host can control who's muted and unmuted. And if we have somebody who is incapable of remaining mute while others are talking, the host is going to mute that person. If somebody has a question and they're on camera, they should raise their hand to be recognized. I should note I'm in front of a single laptop with one screen, and so sometimes I may be looking at another screen with exhibits on it. So unlike in the meeting room where if you raise your hand, I can see you, I have to cycle back and forth every so often, and please don't be offended if it takes me a second to recognize that someone's raising their hand. We will backtrack if necessary. If you're not on video, then you should direct your questions to the chat box. And I'm not the person to tell you how to use the chat box, but I believe there's a little voice bubble in the top right of the screen that when you move your cursor over it, will say the word chat. It now should display a 1 because Andrew Graminsky was good enough to type test, and you should be able to click that and see people's chats. So that's going to be the end of my technical advice. Did I get that right, Andrew?
Very good, James. Thank you.
Okay. Wow. 100% success rate on technical advice. During the public comment phase, excuse me, there is one more thing. Planning staff are going to read off the questions that are raised in the chat box, so I don't have to keep track of those. But again, there's going to be multiple things on a single screen that I'm trying to pay attention to. And I just ask that the people who are involved with this bear with me a little bit, because this is a new operation for me in this context and with this app, and that's new for everyone else too, I think. During the public comment phase, I'm going to call on people 2 to 3 times, and I'm going to move on if I don't hear public comment, either through the chat box feature we just discussed or somebody raising their hand. If you do use the chat feature, it should be set to what is the default, I believe, which is to send things to all participants. We all need to be patient. This is a meeting at which we've got some legal representatives and potentially some complicated issues. And I'm not fully comfortable with juggling the ordinary obligations we have with the obligations of keeping up with the media and doing it as smoothly as I'd like to. And so just please be patient. So now I'm going to read you my regular script now that I've read that exciting preliminary script. For those of you who have not been to these meetings, this is where I explain how this works. So if you think you're going to want to speak, or if you're an applicant, it's important that you pay attention now. At the DRB, we hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro. We also hear appeals of zoning administrator decisions. Procedurally, the Development Review Board operates on the record. What that means is that we take a clear record of testimony from the applicant and any interested parties, and then we issue a written decision with our findings. Applicants and members of the public should be aware that because we are on the record, this is your opportunity, and perhaps your only opportunity, to comment on and provide evidence related to an application. In the event our decision is appealed to the environmental court, that court will not take or consider new additional testimony at its hearing. Instead, it will look at the evidence from this hearing, the regulations or applicable law, and determine if the evidence supports the findings and decision of this board. Only interested persons that participate in this proceeding may appeal a decision made by this board. So I strongly encourage all of you to speak up at this hearing. Because we're on the record, we're going to ask that you affirm that your testimony will be truthful. So if the applicants and anyone wishing to speak to an application could please affirm the following. So just get ready to say you do. We're going to do this after I administer the oath. I hereby swear or affirm that the evidence I'm about to give in the cause under consideration shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury. This is going to be kind of delicate, but I'd like you to unmute and say I do if you think there is even one tiny modicum of a chance you're going to speak, because I don't want to have to go through this again, along with all the other things we're going to try to juggle technologically.
I do.
I do.
I do.
Chris, say I do.
I do.
Cool.
I should note that after that scolding I gave you, if you did not go under oath, but you change your mind and you want to testify, that's okay.
I'm Michelle and I do.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. Pardon me. So if you didn't go under oath, but you change your mind and you wish to speak, whether you're an applicant or an interested person, we still need to, I still need to administer the oath to you individually. If that doesn't happen and you're not on the recording saying I do just now, anything you said is not part of the record because it's not testimony under oath. So even though I would much rather you do the oath now, you have to let us know if you didn't and you change your mind. Applicants require a majority vote of the full board to succeed. Oh. Did we just miss somebody trying to say I do?
I do. I'm not an applicant, though. I'm sorry.
Can you just say your name, because I can't see you and I'd like to make sure we have that on the record.
My name is Emma Jones Higley. I'm not an applicant, but I do.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Applicants require a majority vote of the full board to succeed. Now, I should note that we're not voting tonight. We're going to have a separate deliberative session in a week at which we will vote. The majority vote means 4 votes out of 7. If we don't have a full board present to hear your application, then we'll consider a request to continue your application to the next public meeting. After taking testimony, son of a gun, I'm sorry. That is not helpful. Sorry, pardon me. So there's technological snafu 1. After taking testimony, the board will close the public hearing and may vote on your application. Again, that's going to happen next week. The board will issue a written decision within 45 days of the close of the hearing. If you see that suddenly there is a wasp in the room, I'm sorry. While we may vote on an application, it is the written decision that controls the timeline for an appeal. And that's the decision that comes out after the vote, I should note. The town of Brattleboro is a party here that has an interest in land development applications. The town has no special status before this board. Documents provided by the board to the board by the town planning department, town attorney, or any other town departments will be considered in exactly the same way as information from the applicant or any interested party. Mr. Bannon, has this meeting been properly warned?
Yes, it has.
Do we have any ex parte communications or conflicts of interests to disclose? I'm assuming that that means no.
Maya has something to say.
Oh, pardon me.
I'm on a board with Robin Sweetapple. But we have not discussed this particular case that she's coming before the board concerning. So, unless other people feel uncomfortable, then I'll go ahead and participate.
I'll note, Maya, that I'm also on another board with Robin Sweetapple, who apparently is on a lot of boards. I don't feel it's a conflict in my case, and I certainly have no objection to your doing that.
Yeah, we haven't discussed this particular case, so I don't think it's a conflict.
I've been awfully quiet.
Anybody else?
No conflicts.
Okay. One final word about the procedures. If we have technical difficulties that make this meeting impossible to continue, let's just say the host can't keep it going, or we lose internet or power or God knows what. If that happens, we will immediately adjourn upon the technical difficulty and continue all hearings to the meeting at 7 p.m. on June 24th. It'll be at the same GoToMeeting link. Because we can't make a motion after there are technical difficulties, I would respectfully request that one of us move to adjourn the meeting in the event of a technical difficulty and continue all hearings to that June 24th meeting.
Ian
I so
Keel,
moved.
I move. Oh, it looks like Maya got it. I'll
You want a
second
second?
Maya's.
Yeah, we need a second. Or I didn't hear the
Oh,
second.
Ian Keel, I will second.
Is there any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, the way we're going to vote is that I'm going to call on each person in turn. And when it's your turn to vote, you vote. Eric,
Aye.
Ian, Maya,
Aye.
Nora,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Catherine. Did I miss anybody other than myself? Okay, I vote aye.
This is Ian, I vote in the affirmative.
Okay, I vote aye as well. Are there any nays or dissenters? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Brian, I believe I've gone through all of the unusual preliminaries. Is there anything that I've missed?
I don't think so, James. I think that all is left is the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay. I'm going to note, just in case there's anybody who showed up here that doesn't know this, that the applicant submissions, except for a couple that came in at the sort of the last minute, are available on the website of the of the Development Review Board. Andrew, is it possible to post a link to that in the chat box so that people can access that if they wish?
Yes, I can do that right now.
Okay, so these submissions are evidence that the applicants are going to talk about. Just a note to the applicants, I'm going to guess that Sandy and Sam Angel have both been doing a little bit of Zoom work and are somewhat accustomed to this. What's going to happen is that we are going to try to manipulate our way through these exhibits together so that we can see and talk about them at the same time. We don't have a framework for exactly how to do that. And Sandy and Sam, I'm going to ask that you sort of pretend you're at a deposition and just say what you're talking about and wait a second so that we can try to get it on the screen. Because what's going to happen, at least in my case where I only have one screen, is that I'm going to have to blow this thing up and try to follow along with you in a little window next to me.
James, real quick, I have all applicant evidence on my screen, which I'm going to share when we get started.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. So if that works, that's even better. But could the applicants or the attorneys speaking on their behalf just make sure that you're paying attention to what Andrew's putting up on the screen, so that we can coordinate looking at what you're talking about, and it's going to create a record that is easier to follow. And if we don't adhere to that protocol, I fear that things are going to get messy much more quickly than I would like. If we run away from that, I'm probably just going to try to stop us for a second, catch up and restart. And I think the lawyers here will be kind of used to this because this is something we deal with from time to time. This version of my message is to the applicants who are talking. Please don't be offended if I just say stop talking, hold on. It's just because I probably am not able to follow what you're talking about as well as you are. So with that in mind, I'm going to pull up the agenda here. Yeah. Somebody trying to say something? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. The first application is 2020-14. I believe the pronunciation of the applicant is Amira Pendlebury for the Natural Child School, LLC. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Mr. Shriver's here on her behalf. Is that right?
No.
James?
No, I'm sorry.
James, this is Sandy. Andrew Marchev from my office is going to be appearing on behalf of Emma Jones Higley.
Okay.
So it's not going to be me. I'm here for the second application.
Pardon me assuming. I'm kind of living in a vacuum here where I assume that the only people I see on video are the only ones who are here. So is Mr. Marchev here to present on this, or is the applicant going to speak about the application, or a little bit of both?
James. So yes, I'm here to give a little presentation, and I'm going to be asking my client a couple of questions, sort of as a way of getting her brief testimony in.
Okay, and she's on telephone but no video. Do you know that?
No.
Well, we got an instruction at the beginning to turn off our mics and videos until, at least that was that first slide. So we were just waiting until it was our turn to turn
Okay.
on. Should we leave?
Andrew, the
Bear with
PowerPoint, is this the same PowerPoint presentation you sent to Brian Bannon?
It is, but yes, it is.
All right. Well, I have that PowerPoint on my screen that I could go through. But if it's easier, I can give you access to use your own screen. If you give me a sec, I can see if I can do that.
Okay, it's not critical. I mean, but I think just in terms of time, that's how I practiced it. So I think it'll be faster.
Gotcha. Well, I'll tell you this. Just you can tell me when to keep moving through the slides, and I will do that. Will that work?
Sure. Yeah, and I guess I'll just have to. I was using the pointer when I was going through it, but I'll just describe it.
And
that works.
guys, I'm sorry. Just wait 1 second. Did we lose Ms. Turnus? I think we lost Catherine.
Oh.
Yes, go ahead, Andrew.
I just have and if it's better for me to do this in the text, I have a technical question for Mr. Graminsky. There's
Go
actually
for it.
a brief video we were hoping to show. And
I can
think
pull that up.
you can pull that up? Okay, great, perfect, thank you.
James,
Yes.
just point of information, this, Mr. Marchev is representing a neighbor, and the applicant herself has not yet had a chance to explain her project.
Oh, okay, okay. Excuse me. Okay, so we'll start with the applicant then. I'm sorry, Mr. Marchev. We'll get to you in short order. Forgive me. So first of all, do you want to be called by your first or last name?
You can go by last name. It's probably easier for you to pronounce.
Well, I was just going to ask you how to pronounce the first name if you want the first name, because I'm afraid I might have butchered it on the first try.
You didn't do bad. I mean, it's an uncommon name, so I'm kind of used to it. But my first name is Amaria Pendlebury.
Maria, okay. I'm happy to call you Miss Pendlebury. I'm happy to call you Maria. You just tell us.
Miss Pendlebury is just fine.
Okay, just wait 1 second. I just want to confirm that we either have or don't have Miss Turnus. I think we lost her.
It appears that we've lost her. Oh,
Oh,
she's
there
back.
she's back.
She's
Okay. Wonderful. Catherine, you back and you can hear us? Okay. Maria, why don't you take it away? Tell us a little bit about your project, please.
Okay. So again, my name is Amaria Pendlebury. I have a home childcare. It's a registered home childcare right now, which means that I can have up to 6 children from birth, 6 weeks until the age of 5. And then 4 after-school kids, ages 5 to 13. So that gives me a total of 10 children during the day. Again, because it's after-school kids, then usually in a typical non-pandemic year, we would have 6 kids during the day, and then after kids when the school lets out. And so there's usually about 6, maybe 8. Very rarely is there the 10, but I've been doing home childcare since 2011. We used to live on Sunset Lake Road, loved it there, but we decided our family needed to grow. So we looked for a place that could accommodate both the childcare and my family's growth, and we found this wonderful home at Fort Demer Heights. I got registered. I talked to Mr. Bannon quite frequently about making sure that I was following the town's rules. So when it came to the point that I was hoping to add 2 more children, which is my hope to have 12 during the day. And actually, my site plan for my septic tank only allows for 1 extra child. So at any time, I can only have 11 full-time kids here. That does not include my own 2 children. So this would add most likely just 1 family. So I am coming to the board to ask them to please, I know it seems very small, just adding 1 more family, 1 more child. But that family, in the state of Vermont, we are in a dire need for childcare. And especially right now with COVID-19 having hit us, I stayed open during the whole time, serving our families that are essential employees. Most of them were hospital workers, needing shift changes, a variety of different things, and just really needing that support. I had to take children in that had never come to my place before. They had to switch childcare. It was very unusual, but it's a great service that I'm trying to provide here. Fort Demer Heights is absolutely amazing and wonderful. I have a great amount of woods that I fenced in so the children can explore their nature. There's no typical playground equipment. We have a mud kitchen, which is children love to get wet and muddy in. And we also have, a few scooters and the little types, little buggies that, we're all kind of used to seeing, the red with the yellow hoop tops. And, you know, it's just, that's why I'm called the Natural Child School, just trying to keep things as natural as possible, giving the children that experience. And it is with the hope that by granting, you know, even that one more child, it's helping one more child be able to have a successful early education. I have my degree in early childhood education. I went to school at UVM. I got my bachelor's of science degree. I got my teacher's license. I am currently at 5 stars, which is Vermont's highest standard that they can possibly give a daycare, a childcare program. One of the only home childcare programs in Windham County that has 5 stars. And I'm not trying to brag or say that, you know, children would be honored to be here. I'm saying that any child that needs childcare should have that opportunity to go to childcare. And even if it's helping just one family, one child, you know, I really sincerely hope that we can get that.
Thank you. Since we have another presentation, my thought is to have Mr. Marchev, who designed this apparently for us, give the presentation before we move on to questions. But if there are members of the board who would like to ask Amaria, right? Amaria, questions before we proceed to that, I'm comfortable that way too. It's really up to you guys. Yes, Maya.
Is Mr. Marchev representing the abutter, or?
That's my understanding. Is that right, Brian?
Yes, it is.
So can we ask questions of her first before we hear from the abutter?
I'm happy to do it that way. The only reason I thought it might make more sense to have Mr. Marchev give his presentation is that it might allow us to focus our questions more narrowly on the issues he raises, but I'm happy to give the applicant questions first too.
Can I go ahead and ask questions, or?
Yes.
Okay. When you increase the number of children, how much do you expect the traffic to increase?
Like I said, I mean, I already have 10 children here, so it would only add, I mean, it would only add one more car. You know, the families are already, they don't all drop off at the same time. You know, I have families coming at 6:45 in the morning. There's 2 families that, well, one family comes at 6:30 and waits, and then the other family comes a little bit later, 6:50-ish. And then a family might come at 7:15, another one at 7:30, one at 8. You know, it's not a huge rush. I don't operate my hours like that. It's to support the families as they need it. But with one family, it would only be one car picking up and dropping off.
And can you explain the turnaround? I don't know whether we need to see the site plan, but
I can pull it up, Maya.
my question was, is there adequate turnaround for the cars? And I guess if there's only one person dropping off at a time, the answer would be that you have enough room.
Yes, you know, there's 2 parking spots. Thank you, Andrew, for pulling that up. There's 2 parking spots right at the front of the childcare space. And like I said, this is already kind of in place. So really, there isn't any big changes that I'm going to be making. It's just making a little bit more space for the parents to have a little bit more room for that one car. So there's generally what the parents do is 2 parents might pull up into the 2 spots, and then another family might, if there happens to be someone taking a little bit longer, is to pull into the space right in front of the garage where it says one existing parking space. And the parents usually give each other enough space and time. There's no one trying to leave at the same time. and they, they back out and they turn around just fine. There hasn't been a problem since then.
Okay, my other question is there room for emergency equipment?
Yes, no, there definitely is. And that's the hope is, that's the plan to make sure that there is room. It would be moving any cars that would be near the front of the door to be able to in a different spot so that the staff and my car is not blocking any. So if an emergency were to happen, that the emergency vehicles can get in as soon as possible. The driveway is relatively big. It fits 2 cars comfortably. The daycare space is actually a renovated garage, so it's used to having 2 cars pulled up into it, which would give adequate space for a fire truck. There's nothing in the way of another car pulling up, a fire truck or ambulance or anything like that to be up close, that they could just pull up right next to that. There'd be plenty of space.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the board before we allow Mr. Marshev to conduct his presentation?
Have one?
I'm sorry. Yes, go
Hi,
ahead.
Bob.
And just for everybody's information, while the share screen is up, I have to actually cycle through all the videos to see everybody. So I apologize, Michael. I didn't see you there because I didn't realize that, and I will cycle as a matter of course going forward. So Michael, go ahead.
Do you have any employees that are associated with this, or is this just you?
Nope, I would definitely have, I would end up having 2 staff that would help cover the day. 2 staff is actually quite generous in this circumstance. The state of Vermont does not require for the number of children for me to have 2 staff, but looking at what I can afford and what would be possible, it is actually very doable for me to have 2 staff, and that's what I would be doing. Both young ladies have been chosen and they've been working part-time. They are themselves early childhood educators. One of them has graduated from the Greenfield Community College with her degree in early childhood education. And the other staff is currently going to school at Brattleboro CCV and getting her degree in early childhood education.
Do they come by vehicle or park on site?
They do come by vehicle. Again, that's the plan is to move, because that would be 2 cars, that it would end up being up above the road a little bit. So if you can look at the site plan, there's a dashed line kind of following one section, and then I own actually the next property above that, and there's a natural space that allows for 2, thank you, Andrew's using his pointer to direct. There's 2 parking spaces there. There's plenty of room. There's a utility pole. There's plenty of space for the utility worker to be able to be there, as well as the cars. There's space enough to even fit more cars, but comfortably, I would rather only have 2 cars in case of emergency, and just making sure that there's plenty of space and not overcrowding.
And are these 2 people, do they currently work there now, or are these associated with your increase?
The hours would increase as my students increase. Right now, I can afford to pay 1 full-time and 1 is at a part-time position, because I can't afford to pay more. With the added person, it would end up giving her the amount of hours she would need to be full-time. Right now, she is working 2 part-time jobs and going to school.
Thank you.
Do any other members of the board have any questions for Ms. Pendlebury before we move on to Mr. Marshev's presentation? I don't think I see any hands. Mr. Marshev, just give Mr. Graminsky a second. I think he's going to have to queue this up and you're going to have to follow his lead. But as soon as you're ready, well, first of all, you're muted, so whatever you just said, we didn't hear. But whenever you're ready.
That's fine. I could start by introducing myself and my client, perhaps. That might be helpful.
Sure.
Get preliminaries out of the way. I'm Andrew Marshev. I'm an attorney here in town. I work for Phillips, Dunn, Shriver, and Carroll. That's the confusion with Sandy Shriver. And I'm here representing Emma Jones Higley, who's an interested party, and by virtue of being the abutter, she's sort of the first abutter on the right of way. And yeah, I prepared a presentation. I thought that would be the easiest way to get through the evidence that we want to put into the record. Also, just a quick evidentiary note. One of the pieces of evidence that we're going to be introducing is records of the amount of trips per day in a particular week to up and down the right-of-way. That's based on data from my client's home security system. And for reasons that are beyond my expertise, that raw data is in the form of video clips. And so since we want to preserve the record, we wanted to introduce all of those video clips should there be an appeal. But we're not gonna go through every video clip. Don't worry. But that's why there's if you look at the Google folder that I sent, there's kind of a set of things that, including the PowerPoint, which are things I'm going to speak to in this presentation, and then there's another folder that says kind of the complete record, which is more of that kind of the raw data points. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So Andrea, you can go ahead and click on the next slide. To summarize our position, we would ask that the DRB reject the permit unconditionally. And we're really concerned with one aspect of the permit, and that's just with the amount of traffic. I think we're maybe having a little technical difficulty. I might wait for, there we go, yeah. So our primary concern is with the volume of traffic. Our position is that the amount of traffic caused by having 12 full-time children at the Natural Child School will alter the character of the area and create undue adverse impacts. The reason we're fairly certain of this is because we actually know that prior to the COVID-19 shutdown of daycares, that the Natural Child School was operating with about 12 to 13 children attending. The reason we know that is because of publicly available records from 2 different DCF site visits. And the reason we know that the impacts are undue is because during this time that the Natural Child School has been operating with the amount of children requested for, that the traffic has caused undue impacts to my client and her family who live with her. So Andrew, if you'll go to the next slide. I'm going to go through, so just to sort of rules of 3, I'm going to show evidence to show what the undue adverse impacts are, which will be primarily testimony from my client. I'm going to show evidence as to what the volume of traffic is and the rate it's coming up and down the road. And I'm also going to just talk briefly about the DCF site visit reports and why it's good evidence as to how many children are attending Natural Child School. I may just refer to it as the applicant from now on. But first, just a quick bit of context. So this is a Google Maps of Fort Dummer Heights and Old Guilford Road, which is the road that Fort Dummer Heights comes off of. And really what I just wanted to show on this is that it's the right-of-way. And if you can point to Fort Dummer Heights, Andrew, I kind of highlighted it in red. Fort Dummer Heights itself is a dead end right-of-way, and Old Guilford Road, which turns into Fort Dummer State Park itself, is also a dead end. So you're not having a lot of through traffic go through. Another point is that this is in a rural residential zoning district. And so the expectation is for not a whole lot of traffic. Andrew, if you'll go to the next slide, please. And just quickly here, all I wanted to point out, Andrew, if you can sort of point along the right of way, is that this right of way services just 3 houses currently. There's an empty lot at the top. I don't know what the plans are for it. But again, it's a right of way for 3 houses. Typical expectation is not a whole lot of traffic. Andrew, if you'll go to the next slide, please. Weird to say my own name. But yeah, so these are 2 pictures that my client took of the right of way. On the left is a picture from Old Guilford Road, and you'll see in the right of the picture is my client's house. And then the other picture is just sort of that gives you a better sense of how close the right of way is to the house. And another thing you'll notice is that it's a 1-lane dirt, basically a driveway. So again, the expectation is very little traffic. It's not really designed for more traffic. And I think this is a good time to get some testimony from my client. And Andrew, I don't know if there's a way to pause the shared screen.
Yep, there is.
Perfect, thank you. But Emma, in the picture that we saw, we can see that your home is quite close to the road. Could you, just a rough estimate, how close is your home to the right of way?
20 or 30 feet.
Okay. And when you're inside the home, do you ever notice the traffic going by?
You can hear the cars going by.
Okay. And when I also noticed that in the picture you have a nice porch there. Is the traffic impacting your use of the porch at all?
Yes. If I'm out on the porch and the cars go by, and the faster they go, the more it occurs. The dust comes up onto the porch. The house is covered in dust from all the traffic. I also, I would like to point out that I've been diagnosed with cancer, so my only place that I go to for my quiet enjoyment is my home. And I essentially don't use the front very much. So I stay indoors the majority of the time with the windows closed to keep the dust out. The amount of traffic really has impacted my quiet enjoyment of my home and my property. I can't stress enough how it has adversely affected my life.
I'm really sorry to hear that, Emma, and thank you for sharing that. And you might be able to fill in some more details too, but just to go through some of our questions here. So beyond so we heard that the amount of traffic disturbs your peaceful enjoyment of the property. Mm-hmm. But does it have, I understand that there's other impacts that it has as well.
Yeah. Well, the noise, particularly in the mornings up in my bedroom, because my bedroom's on the front of the house. Mm-hmm. So I had to put a fan on, I keep a fan on all year long so I don't hear the cars and the traffic I don't know why, but it even sounds louder upstairs. I don't know why, but I'm nervous. I'm sorry, everybody.
Yeah, it's all right, Emma. It's public speaking is hard. So, but oh, sorry, were you gonna say something?
I can't keep my train of thought.
So let me help you. So I think we've established that your peace and quiet is disturbed, but in the picture we also see that the right-of-way connects to your driveway.
Yeah.
And so is the right-of-way your only point of ingress and egress?
It is, and that is the only way in for us. And there are times when we have to wait to come home or get out because other traffic for the daycare is coming in or going down.
And okay, and how often would you say that your ingress and egress is interrupted?
You know, because I have the cancer diagnosis, and I have to stay home most of the time now because the COVID thing really alienates me because I've had the chemo. So I don't go out as much as I used to. So that's a plus for them, but it's quite frequent that there are multiple cars, that there are many cars up and down the road. Sometimes they go 2 by 2 and somebody pulls and they block my driveway because they're going by each other.
So yeah, so it sounds like it's happening a lot, is the impression I get. I think, and I know I'm sure you have more to say, Emma, but I think just in terms of keeping our time, I think we'll keep it up there for now. But just correct me if I'm wrong, but to summarize, if I understand you correctly, it sounds like the traffic is disturbing your enjoyment of when you're inside the home. It impacts the use of your porch, the use of your ingress and egress. And I understand that your family notices it as well, right? And that's why we've submitted a letter from Miss Jones Higley's son. We felt that to be respectful of time, we didn't want him to testify also, but the letter is part of the evidence we submit. So again, I apologize to go through things quickly, but I just want to be respectful of time. So I think that wraps up the portion of our evidence that's what the impacts are. So now I want to go to our evidence that shows the volume of traffic, which are based on Ms. Jones Higley's security system. So thank you, Andrew. You totally guessed what I was going to say. So we wanted to focus on 1 work week, just because we didn't want to overwhelm you with information. It happened to be the case that this was the last full week before the COVID shutdown. We didn't pick it for that reason. But you'll see on the left column, there's the dates, and on the right column is the trips that were captured by the home security system. I'm not a particularly technical person myself, but I understand that the system has some kind of trigger that notices when a vehicle is going up or down the driveway, and it's apparently sophisticated enough that this data is just for vehicles.
How is this document produced from the system?
So this document, I should say, I produced myself. And I will show 2 of the things that the system produces. It produces time signatures of when the event was triggered, and it produces little video clips. And so, unfortunately, it doesn't create a nice, neat Excel sheet. So I went, and with some help from my client, we both went through all the little trigger signatures, and compiled this. But that's part of what's in the complete record folder, or I forget exactly what I named it, but the folder within a folder in the Google Docs that has all those individual entries And maybe as I present it, it'll become clearer how we compiled it. But this was, you know what, I think I'll, if it's all right, James, I think the next couple of slides should answer your question. And if not, I'm happy to go into more detail.
Well, so I think it'd just be helpful if you took some testimony from the applicant,
Sure.
laying the foundation for how this data came in front of us. I just am concerned about admissibility issues, that's all.
And that's a very good point. So Emma, if you could come back online, your camera and your microphone. See, there she is.
Sorry, he said applicant, so I didn't pop back in.
So Emma, I'm going to ask you a few questions about your home security system
Okay.
to try to establish where this data all comes from.
Can I just say that I don't want to talk too much about my security system to the public, but I can answer how these were generated. Is that okay? Because this is going to be live, like anybody can watch it to know what I have on my house. Is that okay with everybody?
All I'm asking for clarification for is where these numbers came from.
Yes, sir. So I have clips that show the cars going up and down, and that's videos, and that's where those numbers came from, sir. It includes daycare, cars going up and down, delivery to the daycare, any traffic to the daycare for that one specific day or each specific day.
So you watched the clips and you took down how many clips were made on each day, and this is a table of that information?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you, James. I didn't spot that admissibility issue, so I appreciate it. So is that enough? Are we good on?
That's fine. That's fine. I just want to make sure I know who's making what when it comes to a compilation.
And that makes perfect sense. Thank you. So yeah. So as you can see, it's the dates on the left, trips captured on the right. And Emma, real quick. Sorry, you already turned your camera off. But is there anything unusual about in terms of your own experience of the traffic? How much traffic this table represents?
Up until before the virus, that was a usual and customary traffic. It was nonstop all day, all times a day. There wasn't slow spots.
And we'll get to that, the consistency of it in a second. But in terms of the amount of trips per day, does this seem about right?
Yes.
Okay. So Andrew, if you could go to the next slide. Oh, and actually, this is, if it's all right, if you can pull up this video, Andrew. So this is a video that's captured from the home security system. And there we go, perfect, it'll play. And there's a couple of things we want to point out here. One is how many cars will come at once sometimes. So if you notice in the top right corner, there's 3 cars, one's pulled over, 2 are circling around, and then there's this 4th one coming up. And so there's sort of these backups happen. Well, Emma, I should ask you, how often does a backup like this, where you have 4 cars trying to get around each other, happen per week? Rough estimate.
I don't know how often it happens a week. This is a frequent thing where there's a minimum of 2 cars butting up against each other, and often you'll see 3. 4 is, I'll admit, not as common, but you can see that there were 4 different vehicles, 3 trying to leave and 1 coming up at the same time on May 29th.
Right.
It's very tight right there. You're talking about a tiny, narrow dirt road, and the 1 car's pulled over into the right of way, essentially, right there on the left-hand side there.
So, and thank you, Emma. And so, so that's one point, is sort of the dynamics that can happen when several people are coming to pick up. But the other point is that, and Emma, you can interject if I say anything wrong, but my understanding of how the security system works is that this record actually shows up as just one trip in the system.
Yes, sir.
So sometimes in that chart, it's just good to keep in mind that a few of those trips might be more than going back and forth. So to move on, Andrew, if you can move on to the next slide. This is what the kind of original record looks like. As you can see, it has a location, sort of the description, camera triggered, and then on the right, a time recording. And the way this is set up, you can't see a whole day at the same time. It's several pages. So the next slide, if you'll click, and this is something that I prepared. I took sort of, I clipped the time recording from each page so that the development review board could see 1 day's worth of traffic all in one. Is that okay? If anybody has any questions about
What did it come from?
these records?
Yeah, when you say you clipped it from something, what was the thing you clipped it from?
So Andrew, if you could go back to the last slide. So this is a screenshot of my client's home computer with her home security system application open. And actually, maybe if I can ask you some questions about this might be a better way to get it admitted.
Hello there. If you look in the bottom right-hand side, it says go to page 1 through 9 on that picture right there. There are 10 clips per page. This is the last page or the very first page, excuse me, for the day on 3/2. So there are a total of 9 pages, and there are up to 10 clips per. Yeah, this is the last page. I'm sorry. So Andrew just didn't include all of those pages. He wrote them down in order of all the clips for the whole 9 pages for you to see, instead of giving you 9 individual pages. So you could see the how the cars go up and down throughout the day. Like if you look at the top, it says 8:32, 8:28, 8:26, 8:22, 8:21, 8:15. So one parent would go up, stay 5, 10, 15 minutes, come down, another one might be going up while that one's there. And that's what this indicates throughout that one particular day. And or delivery people, you know.
Yeah, we don't have the exact numbers on exactly how many of these trips are to the Natural Child School, but it's sort of a general picture of what the traffic is like on this right of way during this period of time. Does that help answer the question about what this item is?
Yes, thank you.
And the complete the unedited version is in what I submitted as well, so you can see the originals. I just wanted to kind of give you a all-in-one view of it, because I think it's helpful to see the volume of traffic we're working with. And so I think how that relates to the relevant regulations, if you'll go to the next slide, Andrew. And I don't want to be conscious of the time, so I won't go too much into this, but I think most of you are familiar with the Chapter 230 rural zoning districts that talks about rural residential areas being a suitable and attractive location for low density residential development, and that the purpose is to protect a rural character. And so I guess what we would put to the development review board is whether, you know, between 60 and 70 trips per day on a one-way right-of-way is rural in character. And so that, I think, wraps up our volume portion. And now I'm going to try to just quickly go through are evidence as to why, or just the DCF site visits indicating that there were 12 children at the Natural Child School. So if Andrew, if you'll go to the next slide. This was something we've submitted to the whole reports, but again, trying to be respectful of your time. There was a site visit to applicant on January 17, 2020. It found that there were 12 children there with 4 caretakers. 2 of them were employees, so 2 of them would be presumably coming off site. And the inspector from DCF talked to Mrs. Pendlebury and other staff persons, and they reported that this was a typical number of children in care daily. So that this was not out of the ordinary. 12 children is what was typical around that time period.
Did you submit this document in your package?
I did. Would you prefer to look at the actual document?
Can we just get a quick look at it?
Sure. So Andrew, it should be in the same Google folder.
Yep, give me a sec, please.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Sorry.
What is the document called, Andrew?
I believe it's called DCF Site Visit, January 01/17, etc.
Brian, this is to Brian Bannon. Brian, is this you sent me an email, is that the document?
Andrew, I just sent you the Google Drive. I'm not sure what is on there.
Okay. Oh, I found. Is this the one from okay. There's 3 different screenshots, Andrew. There's 3 PDFs in there.
Yes, there should be 3 PDFs, and
Okay.
one would be January 17th. So yeah, that's it. And so so if you look at factual on 6.2.1 and go down to factual basis for violation, that's the key information there.
Okay, fine. Go ahead with the PowerPoint. Thanks.
And Andrew, it might actually be helpful because there's a couple points that I make, but actually the next thing is the DCF site visit on March 6th. And it should be in a similar section. But let's see. Yeah, and I think it's again factual basis for violation on 3.3.3, I believe. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm wrong. 6.2.1, if you can go down to factual basis for violation. And actually, or I'll wait. And Andrew, if you could just go up a little bit so folks could read the corrective action part. I would highlight what it says there as well. So I think if everyone's read those sections, the point that we're trying to make, I'm not an expert on DCF regulations, and I think that's not really in the purview of this board, but what we're trying to show is that at these two time periods, that there was 12 children in one site visit and 13 children in the next, and that by, at least according to the report, which claims to have spoken to the applicant, that this was a typical number of children, and that there's, DCF is indicating, at least as of when March 6th, they were requesting a reduction in the amount of attendance, so that the ratio between staff and children could be correct according to their regulations. I guess two salient points to this discussion. One is our data for traffic reflects what the applicant is asking for, 12 children. So what my client is experiencing now is what presumably should experience if the permit is allowed. The other point is it's unclear whether or not more staff might be required. I think one of the interesting points is that all of the children that were in the applicant's care on January 17th and March 6th were preschool age, which I understand has a different set of requirements in terms of the amount of staff that need to be around for there being 13 or 12 preschool age children. Also, typically preschool age children are considered, this part I do know, are considered full-time because they're not going to school. They're in the care of the school for of the applicant for the whole time that their parent is at work. So I think that kind of wraps up the key point about what we wanted to raise in terms of the violations. But if we can go back to the PowerPoint.
Hold on a second, everyone.
And I think I can conclude to start my conclusion. So I think we've shown the impacts that the traffic currently has on my client, the volume and density, and also the fact that applicant, at least for some period of time prior to this application, had 12 to 13 children at her school. And so that the traffic my client has been experiencing is reflective of what the permit would allow ultimately. And we feel that this amount of traffic is incompatible with the rural setting. It would alter the character of the area. And as to the performance standards part of the review, it would cause undue adverse impacts in the form of noise, dirt coming off the road onto the house, and difficulty using the right-of-way. I'll make two more specific points. One is that applicant mentions proposing to pave the part of the right-of-way that goes through my client's property. My client objects to that. And also we point out that if the right-of-way needs to be paved, and if it needs to be expanded somewhat, that would in a way be altering the character of the road as well. It would also allow people to go a lot faster, which is already part of the issue. And I think it's, I don't want to be gentle here, but I think it's not irrelevant that applicant had more children than the Brattleboro zoning regulations allow prior to this application being heard. If this permit goes through, an applicant decides to expand her business more, a similar pattern might result, and then my client might have to suffer these impacts before she gets to have her hearing in front of the Development Review Board. So I think that is everything that we want to present on. We're happy to take any questions, me or my client. Thank you.
Catherine, go ahead.
Something about adjacent to wetlands. I don't see anything on the papers that we received or photos that we received where these wetlands are located.
Yeah, and Brian, maybe you can help me with this. And this is admittedly a part of the a part of the application I'm less familiar with, but is that little drop off on the other side of the right of way technically a wetland?
Yeah, so the wetland is on either side of the drive as you come off of Old Guilford Road.
Got it. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, so the photos that we received, the wetlands are on either side of, I'm sorry, this is, the photos that were shown earlier did not look like the ones that we have here in our packet. And I want to know what side of this photo that I have here. Brian, if you've got them in front of you, the ones that we received, where is it? I'm looking at it. Which picture?
Sure. So I think actually the wetlands are on the left side. I'm not sure about on the right side. I think Emma's house is there. I don't know if there are any below her. I kind of think there is, but I'm not sure how clear my memory is.
May I speak to that?
Just one moment, please.
Sorry.
So the pictures that Emma submitted show the drive from the roadway below her house. The picture that the Pendleberries submitted show the drive from below the Pendlebury house. So it's further uphill.
Okay, so there are actually two different houses in these pictures here, two different properties shown?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's helpful. All right.
Ms. Pendlebury, I think you wanted to speak to that issue.
Are you speaking to me, sir?
Yeah, would you rather I call you Emma?
Yeah, my name's Emma.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm mixing you up with the last name of the applicant. Pardon me. Go ahead.
That's okay. So the wetlands, if you were to look at the pictures that I gave you, where it has the picture of my porch and the right of way going up and then my driveway, the wetland is across from my driveway.
Oh, I don't have it.
So yes, right where that little dot is, it's right in there, across from my garage driveway area. So it's up a little bit, but immediately just on the side of the dirt road. Yes, right in there, right close to the dirt road. It drops off significantly to the wetlands right there. You can't see it because of the overgrowth of some wild bamboo-y type of thing.
Is it opposite where it says proposed paving for existing right of way?
Yes, ma'am. It's all along there. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ian,
I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay. I just to let Catherine know, just to be clear, that the applicant's photographs of her property were what we got, those hard copy papers, and the photographs from I'll refer to her as Emma, the abutter, were what we saw digitally through Andrew's presentation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Any other questions from members of the board? Yes, Ian, go ahead. Hold on one second. Michael, were you trying to talk there? Because you're muted and I can't hear you. Okay, go ahead, Ian.
And this could be the applicant, or this could be the abutter. I'm just curious of a little of the context in terms of when the property where the natural child school is located, whether it's the same or different, but when it was purchased, and when it became a daycare center, and presumably the purchase of that property, the driveway, road is, I guess this is the question, this Fort Dummer Heights is a private road that only serves currently 3 houses?
Go ahead, Emma.
Yes, that's a right of way through. The first part is a right of way through my property, granted to the lots up above for ingress and egress only. And I have owned the property since 1991, and I don't know when Amaria started the daycare exactly, but she moved in May, June, July of 2018, I believe. But she would know better on that part. But I've owned the property since 1991, and that right of way has always been like that. Thank you.
Other questions from members of the board? I don't see any, and I'd like to open, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
Is there an existing shared access agreement with the, I believe there's like 3 lots there, or 3 or 4 lots associated with that?
Go ahead, Emma. You can just answer.
I had a little difficulty hearing the gentleman. Could you repeat that, please, sir?
He asked if there was an existing shared access agreement.
There's a warranty deed saying that the lots up above, there were a total of 4, but 2 of them were merged by the previous owner of the property that Amaria bought. And so they are allowed ingress and egress, and they have to pay the maintenance on the road, the maintenance fees, plowing and whatnot. That's all it says in the warranty deed, sir, that they have the right to go up and down.
But you don't have any other agreement about how to use the road besides the right of way, right?
No, and that was pre-existing, sir. That was put in place by the Mears years ago, prior to me purchasing it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions by members of the board? Okay, I suspect that the applicant wants to respond to some of this, but I just want to open the floor to any members of the public who wish to comment first, so that the applicant has a chance to address every issue that's out there, particularly if there are other objections. That having been said, are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this application? If you are not,
Sir, I'm Michelle Charrier.
Okay.
I am here
Before you,
for applicant 2020-11 Jason Evans Construction. However, having carefully sat through all of this, I think I would probably ask, is a right-of-way considered just a access to the public? Could I go up there and drive up and down that road?
quick
Is it
question,
against
Michelle.
the
Are
law?
you sworn in?
I am sworn in, yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. I mean, I'm just going to answer your question. A right of way is contained in a document that says basically someone has a right to cross a property. It can be in a million different ways, and I think that Mr. Marshev actually submitted the warranty deed that has this right of way. But there's no simple answer to that question.
But any member of the public could use that to get to.
Not necessarily. Not
Oh.
necessarily. There are rights of way that the public has the right of way of access to the public, and there are rights of way to private people. It depends.
Uh-huh.
There's no easy answer to that question.
And this business has already received, I assume, initial approval by the town to be able to have a business there in a rural residential district?
Yes, just to jump in, their family child cares are allowed by right in any residence. So we don't actually have any discretion. We just have to issue a permit if it's been requested.
And does the party named Emma have other snapshots of traffic from other dates available to show this board? We don't know if that's typical.
Quickly, we certainly do. And I can't answer whether it's typical part of the question. Obviously, I'll leave that to Emma. But we do have lots of pictures and snippets of traffic coming up and down the road. We made kind of a strategic decision to not overwhelm the DRB, also just in view of there being other applicants after us.
I believe the applicant testified that it was consistent with other periods of time as well. I'm pretty sure you asked that question.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I did ask that question and it was answered. Thank you.
Are you all set, ma'am?
I am. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Any other members of the public wish to comment? I'm going to call the applicant back if there are no other members of the public, and I'd like to hear her response to the objections that the abutter explained in that presentation. Okay, I don't think we have any other members of the public. Is the chat box clear? Did anybody accidentally message you directly, Andrew? Well, Andrew Grominski, since we have two Andrews here.
No, James, no one did.
Okay, thank you. So if the applicant would like to respond, you do not have to, but if you'd like to say anything that is responsive to what either Emma testified about or the exhibits they offered or the argument that Attorney Marshev made, you can go ahead.
Thank you. So I did forget to say in the very beginning when I was presenting this that I had been in close contact with Mr. Bannon because it is my due diligence as for the right-of-way, making sure that it is not bothersome. And I spoke with Mr. Bannon about what the best way and what the road needs to be successful. Mr. Bannon had come out about a year and a half ago when we had some road work done. There was feelings that it had not been done correctly. And Mr. Bannon pointed out that a lot of the way that the right-of-way was built, because it had been built such a long time ago, it needed to be updated in general. I agreed with that and said that, you know, going forward, we would put into a plan of making sure that the right-of-way was built in a way that was effective. And this had nothing to do with the amount of traffic. It was simply to do with the fact that there might be 3 or 4 cars, you know, just in the fact that we might have a friend over or a visitor or, you know, I have family in the area that they might come to visit. The house above us might also have a few cars going in and out, and that we, as a duty to our town and to the wetlands, to make sure that there is proper drain offs and other such things. Mr. Bannon and I have been in contact about that. I asked him the question about paving the road, and Mr. Bannon actually advised me that paving would probably be the better way to prevent undue runoff into the wetlands, that is actually considered a better plan than leaving it to be dirt, where you might get sediments traveling from the road into the wetlands. We also would like to, there is dust, and if it was needed, we would also be offering to put plants along the edge of the road between Miss Higley's house and the roadway to help prevent, and then also beautify the area, provide more environmental friendly access. And also, I asked Mr. Bannon about the road size, and they did. Robin Sweet Apple did put in 14 feet wide. However, that is not exactly the plan. It would not be 14 feet directly with of paving. It would end up being about I think 11 feet across with about 2 feet on either side. I did talk to Dave Manning's, the paving company, and spoke to him about the plan and how important it was to make sure that there was not undue wear to the surrounding areas. We pointed out several areas that might be a little bit more narrow, and he assured me that he would take it in very careful consideration. I did get an estimate and would be planning on being able to do that if we were to be moving forward to help protect. Another side note is that not all the cars driving up and down the road, while some of them are for the child care, some of them are simply because we have UPS and Amazon and FedEx. Sometimes companies send things in many different ways. And also our neighbors have a few renters there. So there could be a few other cars from them. While there is no house, the property on the very end is owned by a gentleman who gave access to his property to his nephews. And so they tend to drive up and into the field frequently. So while I understand that having childcare can be difficult, and I am sincerely hoping that our plan moving forward will help remedy some of the worries that Ms. Higley is feeling.
Maria, may I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
I know this isn't exactly right, but I think that table of trips per day suggested an average of 55 to 65 for the week they used to make the table.
Okay.
Do you think do you disagree with that number as to all of the traffic, keeping in mind that you're saying that it's not all associated with your daycare?
I mean, one of the clips that was pointed out, the video clip that came up, one of the cars was actually not by a childcare. My car needed service, and so there was a rental car. We go to the lease Lexus, and they actually drive a car to come pick up our car, leave the rental car, and drive our car down to get service. So on occasion, there is a little bit of, interactions. My husband also leaves for work, and my daughter also was having, around that time, she also had a different work schedule. So, there could be challenges like that.
I didn't ask my question very well.
Okay.
Let me try again. I'm sorry. I'm just asking, I understand you're saying it's not all your daycare, but do you think that those numbers were indeed representative of all the traffic?
I don't, honestly, I don't see, did you say 56 cars or?
I'm going from memory. I think it was between 55 and 65. Is that about right, Mr. Marshev?
I believe the lowest amount was in the upper 50s, and if we exclude the Friday, which was 81, the highest amount was like in the upper 60s. So close enough.
Okay, so call it, we'll just say in the 60s. What I'm wondering, Amaria, do you agree that that is relatively accurate for the average week?
I would say not. I would say that it would be closer to 28. I mean, I don't even serve half of that number in families. That would be close to about 30 families coming and going from my house. So I would say it would be closer to maybe 28, including my staff. And I just wanted to point out that, I've been.
Hold on one second. I think you're telling me how many trips you think are associated just with the daycare, which is my next question that I haven't asked yet. What I'm trying to figure out is what you're telling me are the number of trips out of the ones on that security camera associated with the daycare. But the first thing I want to know is whether you disagree that the camera is actually accurate. Because of course I wasn't standing there. I didn't see it. You have a house there. So you can tell me, first of all, if there are about 60 to 70 cars per day. And then I want to know how many of those are associated with your daycare. Do you follow me?
I do. I definitely do not see 60 to 70 cars driving up and down the road in a typical day or week.
Okay. And how many trips do you think are associated just with your daycare? I understand you don't have a record, but if you had to estimate, what's your best estimate?
My best estimate directly with the daycare itself and not including my own home use, it would probably be closer to 24 to 26.
Okay. Nora, I'll get to you, Mr. Marchev, in just 1 second. I'm sorry. I see you, but go ahead, Nora.
All right, I'm just gonna put a little, I think, trip logic here. So each family coming would be 4 trips a day. You have outback, outback. So if you do just, your 13 or whatever and your 2 staff members, you're up to 60 right there.
That is true. I did not think about the trips passing by the house in both ways. You are correct.
Mr. Marchev, by any chance, was that what you were about to say, or?
Exactly what I was going to say. Thank you.
Okay. Nice job keeping us efficient, Nora. That was my only question, Amaria, and I'm sorry to interrupt you and go off on a tangent, but before I did that, you were responding to some of the arguments raised by your abutter. So you can finish that up.
Actually, I think I was done.
Okay. I have one quick question now, and maybe it's better directed. I don't know who it's best directed at. I don't really understand the significance of this wetland. Is the point that the abutters are saying that we can't make this road any wider and therefore it's going to continue to be a bottleneck? I'm not following the argument about the wetland or why that's significant.
So it's a somewhat separate issue, but I urge them not to widen the travel lane any further because it might increase impacts. But paving it does reduce the amount of sediment that will flow into the wetlands. It was my understanding at one point that the dust was an issue, and paving can also reduce dust.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members of the board who want to ask anybody any questions? Yes, Ian, you barely beat Maya. Maya, I see you. If you want to just go ahead when Ian's done.
Let me unmute. I guess this was just follow-up question. I believe Michelle, who's up in my top of my screen, asked a question that Brian answered about childcare, in-home childcare. And apparently the regulations are such that if anyone requests it, it's essentially, the way I heard you say it was, we just unconditionally grant it. So I wanted to just clarify, is that sort of unconditional granting of residential childcare does come with some sort of stipulations in terms of total number of childcare students and staff? I just wondered if Brian could clarify that answer to Michelle's question.
Yeah, state statute applies to family childcares, and that's 6 kids. And I have been given to understand that it can also be older siblings for after school care, but I really don't understand those regulations.
Just to follow up then, to be clear, is that although you may not have the purview, any residential homeowner could have childcare in their home without the purview of the Brattleboro Planning Commission or Department, but it is actually a very small scale childcare that is sort of unconditionally approved. Is that correct?
You need a permit, but it's an administrative permit. It's not a conditional use.
And the reason that we're here having this this applicant and this discussion is that because of a request for an expansion on that, we would need to be issuing a conditional use permit, and that's the purpose of this meeting. I just want to make sure
Yeah, that's correct. It's a conditional use in the rural residential district, and that's what they're requesting, an expansion.
I have no.
Maya, go ahead.
If you pave the road, how will that be paid for?
Actually, I was planning on paying for it myself.
So do you need permission from the abutters to pave it? I mean, you have a right-of-way agreement, right? Have you looked into that?
My lawyer actually said that I would be, since it would end up being for the better of the road, that I don't need specific, it's more my duty to make sure that the upkeep of the road was being followed and such, so that
Amaria, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. We're getting into the rules of evidence, which are a pain.
yes.
We can't consider what you tell us that your lawyer told you.
Okay, yep, no, that's fine. That's fine. So it's my understanding that if I am to be helping the upkeep of the road and doing something for the better of the road, that I do not need permission from my rebutter.
Hold on one second. Emma, I see you raising your hand. I just want to make sure that Maya's had a chance to ask any follow-up. You're all set. Emma, I'm happy to have you go ahead. I just want to note that the differing opinions of the applicants on whether the right-of-way can or can't be paved are of questionable relevance here, but that's, we'll take whatever you have to say.
I won't address that, sir. The only thing I would like to say is that when I purchased the home in 1991, I did so because it was in the rural residential area, and it was a quiet location that had very minimal traffic for 2 homes above me. And now I have a freeway in front of my home. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I covered everybody who had a pending question who's on the board.
Hey,
Am
James.
I correct?
Hey, James,
Yeah.
can I say something real quick?
Who's
Someone came into the meeting late, Haley, and she can get sworn in. She'd like to speak on Amaria's business.
Haley, could you please raise your right hand?
Absolutely.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give in the cause under consideration will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Okay, take it away.
All right. Well, I do apologize for coming into this late. So I apologize for any ignorance for, hitting something over that might have already been said. But I would simply love to just share why I feel Amaria's business is so important and truly essential to not only the community, but kind of the surrounding areas. I work at Brattleboro Memorial Hospital. I'm actually from Langdon, New Hampshire, but I work at Brattleboro Memorial. And this past COVID situation, My daycare closed. I have two sons. One is 16 months and one is just turned 6. And his between not being in school, the older one, and then also my younger and Squeaky Sneakers had closed. Even essential working at the hospital, Amaria was absolutely fantastic, being able to arrange to make sure I in last minute and make sure I had good, quality care. I know that my son, and actually once Squeaky opened again, my older son came down until summer camps opened up, but she's been a huge help to my family, and I truly don't know what I would have done without her assistance. As I said, I'm from Langdon, New Hampshire. I was looking for childcare everywhere from Keene down to West Lebanon, where my husband works, all the way over to Windsor and everywhere. So I cannot explain how there's a real shortage of childcare in the area. It's really difficult for working parents, and I cannot express enough how she truly she saved my family as far as being able to function and go to work. It's my understanding also, I had just seen from text that I think my vehicle was one of the cars on a video that's been shown. I can say that it's absolutely true. When you go up, you go in, you drop your kid off and you leave, but your dropping off is within, it's less than 5 minutes. So I mean, when we're doing this in out, it's not to consider it one pass, but it's very quick. It's not like we got a car and then 10-minute car. It's a quick in and out. You know what I'm saying? Not that takes away. I just wanted to speak to that, and really, I haven't noticed any bottlenecking when I'm there. There's, I think, 2 other parents that drop off in the mornings, at least whenever I'm around. So it's very quiet when I'm there, and I understand Emma's lived there for a long time. I know Emma. I worked with Emma in radiology at BMH, and I totally understand wanting to have quiet around your home and whatnot. But as I'm always am mindful, as I see everybody else, we're always under 10 miles per hour. Yeah, I just wanted to share that I don't feel the traffic being as such a concern, and quite frankly, I just really wanted to share how just really essential and necessary her business is, and how much she does for families. And the fact that even food, she is on top of everything as far as getting additional food. What was it, just the other day she was able to give us bags of potatoes and the whole thing of grapes and oranges. I mean, she is truly amazing. And really, Emma, you guys live on the corner. That's the main drag too. I mean, I know you live there because it's quiet, but it's also on a main road. It's a very short, side street there the whatever that gravel road's called. But I mean, she is on the main road. So I just wanted to share that this has been, my time with Amaria has been truly a lifesaver, and that's really all. I don't know what else was spoken, but it's quiet when I come through, and everyone's respectful, and that's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the board? Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak about this application? Is there anything more? Well, you beat me to it, but either the applicant or the abutter wish to say. I see Mr. Marshev wants to make a statement, so go ahead.
Yeah, I think, and just very briefly, I appreciate what Mrs. Drufel shared with us, and I think the point I'd just like to reiterate to the board is that as Mr. Keel kind of went more in depth about, that these permits, Ms. Pendlebury has a permit for 6 children for part-time already, and so it's not like this, and agreed, this very essential service is going to go away completely. But I think that keeping it at the regular permit and having that actually be the number of kids that are attending would make a significant difference in terms of the amount of traffic. Again, going off of Ms. Dissinger's math, if it's 6 full-time children, 4 trips each, that's 24, as opposed to the 48 that 12 full-time children, would represent. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, I think daycare is an essential service, and we're not trying to characterize Mrs. Pendlebury's daycare service in any particular way. It's just the fact that it comes with traffic, and this happens to be in a rural residential area. So thanks again for your time.
Yeah. Emma, did you turn on your mic because you also wanted to speak, or?
I just in case you asked me something, because it was ending, I wanted to be available. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate everybody's patience. We have 2 additional applications to get to. I don't think we necessarily need a motion for this, but I'm going to ask that we have a motion to continue this individual matter until the deliberative session, at which time we'll make a decision. Brian, am I creating any parliamentary problems the way I'm doing that in your view?
No, I don't think it's necessary, but I don't see that it creates a problem.
Well, you know what? I don't want to create any unnecessary delay because it's already getting late. So I'm just going to withdraw my own motion. I think I see a thumbs up from Mr. Keel. Can we move on to the next application, or you have one thing to say?
Just so that everything is clear, this board will be having a separate deliberative session next week, June 24th. Is that correct? So that all parties, including us as board members, understand that we will have this this discussion will continue in a deliberative session, and that is next week, June 24th. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, as long as we don't get hit by an asteroid with this year, I'm not holding out hope for anything, but that's the idea. Okay, so, sorry, I'm going to close the hearing just until that deliberative session on application 2020-14. The next one in line is application 2020-11, Jason Evans Construction for EDW Realty. And who is going to be the presenter for this application?
James, this is Sam Angel. I represent EDW Realty Company, Shanahan Construction Company, Ted Whalen. I'm just going to do really a brief thing. I know we've been here a long time. Thank you for your patience, board members. Can I just ask one question, James? Because I missed the part about the deliberative session. Is the board going to go into a deliberative session and take the application presentation under advisement and not issue a decision tonight? Is that what's happening?
So someone is typing with their microphone on, and I couldn't hear the question clearly. If you're not muted,
okay,
and not hear Mr. Angel, mute yourself, please. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I missed the part about what you guys were going to do in deliberative session. So is the board going to be issuing a decision tonight on application 2020-11, or is it going to be taking it under advisement and issuing a decision later?
The latter.
Okay. Okay. So I just wanted to.
That's true for all applications, not just this one.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Well, I'll just start quickly by saying that in addition to the evidence that we're going to be presenting tonight, Sandy Shriver, who represents the applicant, Jason Evans Construction Company, has submitted a letter to the Development Review Board dated June 16th, which outlines some of the factual reasons that we believe the permit should be granted. And similarly, I've submitted a memorandum of law, also not an exhibit, but I would just ask that the board consider both Sandy's letter and my memorandum of law as it deliberates after the close of evidence tonight as part of our application presentation.
We will.
Okay, 'cause I didn't know.
We consider written argument to be just as valid as what you do orally here.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. Just because I know with this, you know, I can't, obviously, we can't hand out the memorandum and the letter to all the members of the board. So I'm not sure that they all have them to be able to cogitate. But maybe when you deliberate, they can each get those, so they can read them at their own time.
Let me just suggest either to Brian or to Andrew that we email this around and remind everybody here that we should read this stuff before deliberative session, because the alternative is making people who come to our meeting read it into the record, which would be a horrifying precedent to set. And we don't want to do that. Sam, before you start, is everybody who's going to talk in connection with your presentation sworn in? I saw a couple seem to come in a little late.
Why don't we
Yeah.
swear? I don't know if Ted, have you been sworn in? No, Ted hasn't been sworn in, so why don't we do that?
Is there anybody else?
And actually, James, let me interpose. I'm going to have two witnesses, Jason Evans and Chris Long. Chris Long is actually driving home right now, but we anticipate that he'll be back online by the time it's his turn to testify. So you're going to need to swear him in later, but you should
Okay,
swear
we've got
Jason in now.
We've got Mr. Evans and Mr. Whalen here, right?
Yes.
Okay, gentlemen, listen to me. I'm going to swear you in, so please raise your right hand, okay? Do you hereby swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the cause under consideration will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
I do, yes.
Okay, thank you. Pam, back to you.
Thanks. So just really quickly, so the board gets an overview of what we're doing, what the project and the permit is contemplating and requesting before we get going with the evidence. This is a property.
Sam, could I just jump in here? This isn't actually an application to approve it. This is a appeal of a determination that's intensification of use.
Correct.
So you'll overturn or not the determination, and then you'll have to come back for conditional use approval to actually establish the new use.
Yep, thank you. Yeah,
Great.
and I do have a copy of your letter denying the application.
Excellent.
Yeah. So this is a property down on South Main Street. It borders South Main Street and Fairground Road. It's right next to the town garage. It has been used since the 50s in its current use as a construction supply area. Yes, thank you. That we'll get to that, but that is Exhibit 2. That's the tax map. In yellow there is the property that we're talking about. Just to the left of it is the town garage. And the historic use of the property has been very intensive. Large trucks, including 18-wheelers, multiple times a day coming in, mostly in the morning, the evidence will show. And even within the last 5 years, the use has continued to be very extensive. And we have sales records over the last few years, so you'll be able to see the level of activity, at least from the perspective of the sales that have gone on the property, as well as photographs and so forth depicting some of the trucks and so forth that are there. So the Mr. Whalen for EDW is under contract to sell the property to Mr. Evans, and Mr. Evans is proposing to use it as he will describe. We believe to be a much less intensive use than the current use of the property. There's no issue here, as far as I see, Brian, that there's been any kind of an abandonment of a non-conforming use. I don't believe that that was part of the denial. And evidence anyway will show that this has not been abandoned for 12 months or more. So it's really a question of looking at, I believe it's section 125D2, about whether or not the intensity of the use would be more or less under Mr. Evans's use of the property as a non-conforming use than it is under Mr. Whalen's. So just by way of background, and with that, unless Sandy has something, I'd like to start Mr. Whalen's testimony.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So Ted, you are sworn, correct?
Yeah.
All right, can you state your name for the record, please?
This is Edward Whalen.
And where do you live, Mr. Whalen?
I live in 1230 Barney Hill Road in Guilford, Vermont.
And how long have you lived in the Brattleboro area?
I was born in Brattleboro Hospital and lived here either in Brattleboro or Guilford all my life.
You went to high school here?
I went to high school here. As a matter of fact, I was on the Brattleboro Fire Department for 11 years.
All right. Have you ever moved out of the Brattleboro area?
No, I haven't.
What's your relationship to EDW Realty Inc.?
I'm
And what's your relationship to Shanahan Construction Supply?
the president of Shanahan.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Sam, can I just suggest you lean in to wherever your microphone is a touch? You're cutting out sometimes. And just because it's late, I will tell you that if we're not getting into issues of contested facts, my view of leading questions is quite liberal. So I think it's perfectly permissible under the rules of evidence for you to lead him along if you want, but I'll leave that up to you.
Well, this is also by way of background, so I'll just thank you. I'll keep going. Did you buy land in Brattleboro at the time?
Yes, 2010.
And I'd like to look at Exhibit 1 if we could.
Give me a sec, Sam.
Yep. One. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. You have a copy of Exhibit 1 in front of you, Ted?
Yes, I do.
And can you identify that for?
Yes, this is the deed from when I purchased the property.
And who did you purchase the property from?
Old Castle.
Who was Old Castle?
Old Castle was the block manufacturing company prior to me purchasing the property.
Okay, and we'll get into what they did a little bit more. What's the date on the deed?
This was, yeah, if I can find it here.
Andrew, can you click maybe presenter view? I think it'll blow that up a little. It's just a little hard to read. Top left, I think you see presenter view. I think it'll take up your whole screen then.
Right.
Sorry, guys.
The date that you purchased the property?
It was March of 2010.
Okay. And I'd like to look at Exhibit 2. We were looking at that, Andrew, before. It's the tax map.
And by the way, this was Whitcomb's, right?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Where is the property located?
It's 529 South Main Street, right at the corner of Fairground Road in South Main.
And is that accurately shown in yellow on Exhibit 2, Whalen Exhibit 2? Could we go to Exhibit 2, please? Thank you. Does that accurately show the boundary of your property?
Yes, it does. Yep.
Okay. And it borders what's the property to the left?
So that is the Highway Department, Public Works Department.
So you actually share a boundary with the Public Works Department?
Yes, I do.
Did the town ever consider expanding the town garage?
Yes. Mr. Barrett actually contacted me and advised me that property, my property, was one of 3 that the town was looking at to possibly expand.
And when was that?
It was as recent as last year.
As recent as 2019?
Yes.
Okay. James, can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. All right, let's go to Exhibit 3 if we can.
Excuse me, I can't hear either of the presenters clearly.
I think both of you would be well served. I know it's a bit awkward, but if you just get your head physically closer to your computer, it just seems to be you occasionally hit the end of your microphone and it distorts your voice a bit on our end.
I wonder if that's because we're close together.
I wonder if it's, yeah, the reverb.
Let me go into another room. I'm going to just take this up. We're in the same room, James, so I think that might be part of the problem.
It's worth a try.
We'll see if we can do it remotely like this.
That already sounds better, Sam.
Does that sound better?
That's 100% better. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So can you still you can still hear me, Ted?
Yes.
Okay. So if we go to Exhibit 3, I think I wanted to go to. What is that?
This is a photo of the entryway.
The entryway to Shanahan Construction?
Correct. Sorry. Yes.
Okay. And what is the address of your property, by the way?
That is 529 South Main Street.
And when was this taken?
This photo was actually taken this past Friday.
And what's the material there on the far side of the fence?
That is still material that we currently stock and sell out of that location.
That you currently sell? Okay.
Yep.
All right. I'd like to talk a little about the history of the property. Did you have any personal experience with this property before you purchased it?
Yeah, I actually have quite a bit of history with that location. After I graduated high school in '86, I actually was the yard man there, basically putting orders together, putting freight away, things along that nature. And then in 1993, I was hired on as the manager of that location till 1997.
And is your job as manager, what were your duties?
It was day-to-day operations, keeping track of inventory, sales transactions, things along that nature, just day-to-day operation.
So fair to say you have a pretty good perspective on the type of operation that was going on at that property when you were working there?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, can you tell us what the property was used for prior to when you purchased it?
As far back as the 50s, they actually used to manufacture block there. There's still 3 kilns there. It's always been used as a block yard or a construction supply yard, selling various types of material.
What's a block yard?
So a block yard is masonry supplies, so concrete block, precast products, things along that nature.
Can you give the board an example of what a precast product means?
Actually, in this photo, you can see just behind the post, there is a part of a septic tank right behind the post there. So precast products, highway precast, which would be manhole structures, concrete products like the septic tanks, things of that nature.
So not just shingles and that sort of thing. I mean, these are big objects.
Yes, they're big, heavy objects, yes.
How do you move those objects around?
We move them with large triaxle trucks with cranes on them.
And how many when you were working there, how many trucks would be in there in a day moving this stuff around?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. There's many trucks, from taking in stock to doing deliveries. I would dare to say at least 5 or 6 trucks a day, whether it's triaxle or our trucks.
How busy was it when you were there? What was the situation on the yard there?
So it varies from year to year, and obviously month to month. The construction industry is in this area basically 8 months out of the year. Wintertime comes, certainly things slow down, but during those typical 8 months, it's a very busy yard.
Okay, we're still talking about before you purchased it in 2010. You understand that?
Okay, I'm sorry. Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, it's still the same though. It was a very busy yard.
Were there any particular hours during the day that were more or less busy than others?
Well, the majority of it was contractor sales. The contractors usually arrive early mornings to get their product so they can work for the day. So usually, 7 to 9 o'clock was the busy times.
Okay. And what sort of, just let me ask you, Ted, do you have a copy of the exhibits in front of you, just so you?
Yes, I do. Yep.
Okay. When you were saying that there were trucks coming in and out of there, moving this stuff around, picking it up, were they also picking it up, or do you deliver the material? How does that work?
Both. The contractors do come in with large trucks or trailers and pick up material. We load them typically with forklifts, and we also load our trucks with a forklift. So we had multiple trucks in and out of there, in early mornings.
Okay, and when you say early morning, how early?
The store usually was 7 a.m. to 4:30 Monday through Friday.
Okay, and again, this is before you purchased it, right?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And what sort of trucks were coming in and out of there to pick up the material, and what sort of trucks did you have, or not you, but your predecessor have, and that sort of thing?
It was anywhere from 18 wheelers to straight flatbed Mack trucks like the ones we have, or pickup trucks. Customers would come in with pickup trucks to pick up their material.
All right. And what's the name of the company that operates out of there now?
Shanahan Construction Supply Company.
So I'd like to sort of turn the attention away from what it was like, what was going on before you purchased it, and now concentrate a little bit more on what the activities have been at your property since you purchased it in 2010. Is that fair?
Yes, yeah, that's fine.
All right. So since you purchased it, what have you used the site for?
It's a very similar use. We used it, again, for precast products, masonry supplies. We sell, drainage products, anything for foundation customers, excavator contractors, to mason contractors. So, it was used quite a bit for, any construction industry.
And how, like, what are the size, like some of the septic tanks, or I think you called them blocks, or I forget the term you used, but how big are these materials that you're moving around?
They're quite heavy. In particular, a septic tank can be over 10,000 pounds.
And can you describe a little for the board what was stored and sort of how often people came on the site, what they drove, the retail side of it, rentals and that sort of thing, again, since you purchased it, Ted?
Yeah, I mean, we had anywhere from your homeowners coming in, looking at, home improvement projects, because we also do a lot of hardscape products, which are like retaining walls, pavers, natural stone, those type things. We have, your contractors, everyday guys coming in, picking up the material, or we're loading our trucks for delivery of the material. So, it varied from day to day what actually moved from the yard, but yeah, every day we were in there moving material.
And what were some of the size of the trucks that some of the contractors were driving in and out of there when they would pick up the material?
Again, they were large trucks, anywhere from a pickup truck up to a Mack truck, or tractor trailer truck for deliveries.
When you say tractor trailer, you mean like 18 wheelers, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we would get 18 wheelers in there.
How often would you get 18 wheelers in there?
Almost daily.
Did you ever get people in there that, that weren't customers, so to speak, like sales representatives or that kind of thing?
Yeah, you would always have sales reps stopping in. We had many times customers coming in, again, looking at product, trying to get ideas. So, we had a lot of people that come in and out just looking at things.
All right. Now, I just talk about like how busy was it? Do you know, I mean, since you've owned it, can you estimate sort of how many vehicles would be coming in and out of there a day, at what times of day and that sort of thing?
It does vary, obviously the time of the year, but, usually during our busy time, it's 25 to 30 vehicles, I would say, in a day.
And that would include, again, things from smaller pickup trucks all the way up to 18-wheelers, trucks in between, triaxle vehicles, all the kind of things you were talking about?
Yes.
All right. What were your hours of operation? I can't remember if you testified about that. Again, since you've owned the property.
Yes, our hours of operation are 7 a.m. to 4:30 Monday through Friday.
Are there any times of the day since you've owned the property that tend to be busier or less busy?
It's typical, again, your 7 to 9 a.m. is when the contractors usually come in. That was the majority of our sales is through contractors.
Now, can you describe the scene in those morning hours? I mean, what is it, just to try and give the DRB a sense of what it's like, what the traffic is like in there, the noise, the smell? Are these diesel trucks or gasoline trucks? What are these things?
Well, all of our Mack trucks, those are a diesel truck. You do get into some pickups that are diesel as well. But yeah, in the mornings, it can be chaotic. There's many times that I'll arrive at 6:30 a.m. to open the gate, and we'll have a tractor trailer truck waiting to be unloaded. So then you've got contractors coming in around 7 a.m. to pick up material. So there's many a days that it's chaotic there first thing in the morning.
You just said, so the 18-wheelers that are coming in, you said to be unloaded. Is that what you said?
Yes. Yeah.
So
they're bringing in freight.
I'm sorry, say that again.
They were bringing in freight.
Bringing in freight to drop off at your location to then be picked up. Is that what?
Yeah, it's for inventory. Yes.
Okay. Can we go to Exhibit 4 for a moment? Now this is Wayland Exhibit 4, and for the board's reference, I've identified the exhibits with reference to the witness that's testifying and then the number of the exhibit that they're testifying about, just so that when you deliberate, you might remind you about who testified about which exhibit. So what is this a picture of?
This is actually a picture of all the trucks that we use.
Do you know when it was taken?
Yeah, this was 2015.
And can you describe these types of trucks? Is there a way to blow this up, Andrew, at all?
Yes, give me a sec.
Thank you. And you can go ahead, Ted, and describe them as we're getting technical on this.
Sure. So as you can see on all those trucks, they have cranes on them, and that is because you can also see in the same photo that there's pallets of brick. The septic tanks I was describing are behind those trucks. Those are all
there. Okay, so hold on. Sorry, Ted. There's a lot here. So
yeah.
you said the pallets of bricks, and Andrew had the arrow over those.
Yeah.
And then you had the septic tanks in the back. Those are those white cake-like things or something?
Yep. Those are septic tanks, which could weigh up to 10,000 pounds.
And what else do you see in this picture?
Behind, over in the left-hand corner, you can see some black piping. That is actually culverts that you use underneath roadways.
So those are culverts on. Okay, and how much can those trucks? How many axles do those trucks have?
They have 3 to 4 axles. Some of them are triaxles. So yeah, they're 3 to 4 axles.
And you use the crane. What is the crane used for?
The crane is to move the material.
And what would you use the trucks for then? I mean, maybe this is a little bit obvious, but what are the trucks used for?
Yeah, to deliver the product. And once we get to the job site, we use those cranes to move in this particular photo, let's say septic tank, to set them in the hole. Or if we're delivering brick or any other material, we lift them off the trucks and set them wherever the contractor wants.
And so those trucks that we saw in Exhibit 4 there, thank you. You were talking earlier about how contractors would come onto the site usually in the morning to pick material up. But these trucks are actually used to deliver material, you're saying. So is it fair to say, I mean, I guess it's obvious again, but you also deliver material onto job sites?
Yes, that's correct.
And how many of these trucks would be going in and out of your property on a typical day in 2015, 16, 18?
You know, again, it varies day to day, but, you know, it's multiple times, you know, they're moving these trucks in and out of that yard.
Was it unusual for you to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these large vehicles on that site at a given time?
Well, this photo in particular, actually, 2 of those trucks are our Massachusetts location trucks when this photo was taken. But 3 of the trucks are actually stored at the Brattleboro location.
Full time?
Correct.
Right. And so sometimes if you were more busy, you might bring up a couple of trucks from your Massachusetts location to help out with the deliveries?
That is correct.
And that's what was happening here?
Yes.
Right. I just want to make sure the DRB understands there weren't always this many huge trucks,
right,
but there were always 3 at any one time, certainly.
Correct.
Okay. And that's and these are Mack trucks. And what about that pickup truck? Is that a customer's truck?
No, that was actually my truck.
Okay. All right. All right. So that's in 2015. Now, I'd like to focus, Ted, if we can, sort of on the period of 2015 to the present. And I'm just picking that time because that's when the current zoning regulations for the town of Brattleboro were enacted. Okay.
Okay.
Were you able to pull up any sales records of the Brattleboro site between 2016 and 2018?
Yes, I was.
Can we go to Exhibit 5, please? Yes, perfect. Excellent. Thank you. Can you just tell the Development Review Board and the zoning administrator what this is a picture of?
Yeah, this is a quick summary I pulled off for the Brattleboro location. It just shows, you know, the sales transactions, how many transactions, you know, per month and per year.
And what year is this?
This one is 2016.
And is it for what part of 2016 is it?
So the date of it is the December 31st, 2016.
And the farthest right-hand corner, it says year to date, correct?
Correct, yes.
So would it be fair to say that that's whatever's in that column is a reflection of the entire year of 2016?
Pretty much. We did run some transactions out of our Massachusetts location that were, you know, being delivered, you know, on behalf of the Brattleboro store. But yes, this pretty much is what, you know, that store did in sales.
Okay, so, I mean, to be clear, this is a sales record of the Brattleboro location in 2016?
Correct, yes.
All right. So I'd like to break this down for the board a little bit. What were your gross sales at this location in Brattleboro only for 2016? What were your gross sales?
That's 368,000.
Even?
No, 368, 377.
Okay. And Andrew, I don't know if you can do it. Do you have that little cursor? You can see that number on the right-hand column, 368,377 just for the DRB. It's over to the right, a little bit more to the right. Yep, right there. So that says sales totaled year to date, 368,377. Is that, that's US dollars?
That is correct.
All right. And what did those sales comprise of? Was that everything you did there?
Like I was saying, yeah, it's pretty much everything that came out of that location, yes.
All right. And did that include the large septic tanks, the bricks, but then also some of the retail stuff?
Yep.
All right. I don't know if we talked about the retail aspect. You talked about the contractors, but you also had a little bit of a retail business there, right?
Yes, we do.
can you talk to the DRB just a little about what those sales were and what you sold out of that?
So yeah, basically we have it. I would say about 30% of our sales was I'll call homeowners, which are the retail sales end of things. Majority of the sales were contractors or wholesale, if you would.
Okay, so can you give the DRB a sense of the kinds of retail or homeowner type things you're talking about? What is it that you were selling them? Were you I mean, I'm taking it you weren't selling them septic tanks, right?
No, but the retail would be your hardscape products again, your pavers, your retaining walls. People want to improve the exterior of their home, so putting in a patio or a fire pit, things along that lines.
Okay, homeowner type stuff. All right.
Exactly. Yep.
And how much of the 368,377 that you did in business in 2016 there, can you estimate how much of that was the retail portion versus the contractor portion?
Yeah, again, I'd say that was probably around 30%.
So about 30/70. Okay. And can you tell from Exhibit 5 how many customers you had transact business in that location in 2016?
So actual transactions, it shows it's 2,608.
And Andrew, there's about 5 lines down there. There's that number 2608. If you, one more down. Yeah, right there. If you go all the way over to the left, it says customer count. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
So what does this represent? This 2,608 people, what does that represent?
That represents the actual transactions. So that's a sale, basically.
So that's money transaction happening. What about some of the, like you were saying that there were also some people that don't transact business that come on the property, right?
Oh, yes. Every day we would have multiple people in just, asking questions, getting ideas for upcoming projects. We would have, like I said, sales reps coming in. So that's, the 2608 is just actual sales transactions. That really isn't indicative of the amount of people that do come in and go from that location.
And those people come in cars, assumedly, right?
Yes.
So it doesn't include the level of traffic that would be associated with those non-purchasing members of the public that would come onto your property.
Correct.
Is that right? Yeah. Okay.
Tim, can I just interrupt you for one quick second?
Yeah, please.
I'm concerned that the third application is here, and there's probably no reasonable way for us to hear all of your evidence and also the evidence on the third application before people start getting a little rough around the edges. And I would rather discharge the other applicant than have them wait until 10:30 or 11 just to be told that we don't have time to get to their application. And I know at least one person on this board gets up, I think at 3 a.m. It's not me, but I don't want to. I don't want to keep the third applicant here. I want to make sure you guys have the chance to put all your evidence on. And I also don't want to give you a time limit because we need to try to squeeze 2 hearings into too short a period of time. So my suggestion is, and I apologize to Mr. Brunel, who I think is here.
Yeah, I'm here.
But my suggestion is that Brian, do you think it makes sense to push it to 1 week from today?
Yes, I think there's some urgency for John to get his project going and get our approval and the appeal dealt with. So the sooner, I would say, the better.
So do we have a warning issue if we do that, though? That's what I'm concerned about.
No, so long as we continue it to a date certain, we should be fine.
Okay, John, I'm terribly sorry. It's taking a long time to do things
Wait a
we
minute, are you
normally
going to
do with this.
interview me?
Hold on. I'm sorry. It's taking us a long time to do what we would normally do more efficiently because we're using this medium. It's unexpected. And I would like to entertain a motion to continue Mr. Brunel's application 1 week. But first, I just want to hear from you. John, if we push this back 1 week, is it going to cause you irreparable harm?
No, it's no sweat at all. A 1 week's fine. Let's do that. That works
Okay,
good.
I'm very
Thanks,
sorry.
John.
My view is that
Nope.
Mr. Brunel should be at the top of the agenda for a week from today when we do cross that bridge. Ms. Baral or Ms. Barali, were you a witness who came to talk about Brunel's application?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
I've been,
I'm really sorry. I don't want to keep everybody here till midnight. Mr. Brunel's application it's a fairly big project, and I understand the applicant's desire in this current application to get a lot of evidence in about the use because they're appealing the zoning administrator decision, and it has to do with historical use of the property. So they're going through a long period of time, which is totally proper. But that's why I'm suggesting we continue Mr. Brunel's application 1 week. I'm very sorry. It didn't really occur to me until now just how tight the time is.
James, can I speak for a second?
Who is that?
This is Sandy Schreiber.
Yes.
Pam, I thought you wanted to talk about our application, the Jason Evans application.
yes.
So
Well,
she's
I'm
one
not,
of our witnesses. She's going to be fine. We're going to get to you in about 20 minutes, Pam.
Okay.
okay,
Maybe 30 minutes.
I'm not suggesting we push the current application at all. I'm saying the next application we're going to continue so that we know that we're going to use the rest of the time for this. And I'm giving you guys the heads up. I'm going to call it at 10:30. It's either going to be a continuance if you want to do more evidence, or we can close the evidentiary portion of the hearing. I'm just not comfortable asking the board to stay beyond that time.
We'll get it.
So I want to stop talking. I want to take this motion to continue the Brunel application. Mr. Keel.
Just a point of clarification here. I could happily make the motion. Do you foresee us doing a deliberative session prior to then meeting as a board? Am I correct that if we continue
My thought is that with Mr. Brunel, we do it all in one night, and then we have the deliberative sessions associated with these two applications thereafter.
Okay, I make a motion that we, could you tell me which number Brunel is?
Yeah, it's application 2022-48.
I move that we continue application 2020-48 to a meeting a week from today, June 24th.
Can I get a second on that?
I second.
Now, I'm just going to try to do this quick. Does anybody object? Okay, all those in favor, you just turn on your microphone and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, let the record show that's all our voting members were unanimous. Sam, I'm sorry to interrupt your train of thought. I just didn't want to hold anybody here unnecessarily. And John, I'm very sorry. I appreciate your coming tonight. We're figuring out this logistics as we go along, and we'll try to do this as best we can.
Thanks, John.
Awesome. You're doing a good job. I'll see you next week.
Okay, thank you. Sam, Ted, take it
Thanks.
away.
I'm trying to move this pretty quickly. We just got some data to go through, but we're getting there.
You're fine. You're fine.
So we were talking about the 2,608 customers. I think you testified, Ted, that those were paying customers. And I think you were talking about there were also non-paying customers on the property as well. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And I think you testified about sort of the numbers? I mean, was that a daily occurrence to having non-paying customers on the property? Excuse me.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
All right. So the 2,608 doesn't really accurately reflect the amount of traffic on the property. Would that be fair?
That is fair to say, yes.
Right. Now you were busy all year long, is that right?
We do have a slowdown for the winter months, but we, remain open year round.
Okay. So if we can go to Exhibit 6, Andrew.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I just got a notification that the organizer is experiencing technical difficulties. I want to make sure we're still recording, and I want to make sure the members of the board can still hear what's going on. Can you just raise your hand if you can hear? I have it set so I can see everyone. Okay, that's good. I don't know if you see what I just saw, Sam, but it said that if the issue with the organizer isn't resolved, this thing is just going to end in 60 minutes. Given that I plan to end at 10:30, that kind of makes it easy.
Hey, James, I'm
yeah.
back. I lost connection.
Oh, that's it?
My apologies. We're all set.
Thank
Okay.
you, Andrew. Can we go to Exhibit 6?
You got it. Give me
Thank
a sec to share my screen again.
What a weird time this is.
Yes, it is.
For some reason, I lost all the exhibits now. I'm not sure. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. Ted, can you tell us what Exhibit 6 is?
So yes, this is again a sales summary for 2017.
So similar to what we were looking at in Exhibit 5, but the next year.
That is correct.
And what were your total sales at the site in 2017?
That was 470,971.
And what was your customer count?
That was 2,515.
And so if we took that customer count, for example, and just divided it by the number of days in the year, whether it was 365 or 366, if that was a leap year, would it be fair to say that that would give you an average of the number of paying customers on your property per day?
No, not at all. Seeing how one, we're open, 5 days a week, and also, the 4 months of slowdown, we'd have, during the winter months, just a few people through the door compared to, our busy season where we could experience 25 to 30 people.
Okay. So that how much busier were you during the busy months than you were during the slower months? Can you estimate that?
Estimate, it was a lot. Yeah, it was certainly a lot. I don't have an exact number, but yeah, it's night and day because the construction season again is only 8 months long.
So the highest intensity of use on your property, is it fair to say, would be more than the average of the customer count per day, just using these figures?
Yes.
Okay. And again, does the customer count include non-paying personnel that came onto your property on a daily basis?
No, it does not.
And how many of those people, normally the non-paying customers, would walk to your property without using a vehicle?
None.
Okay. So if we can look at Exhibit 7, Andrew, can you pull that up? Okay, this is Exhibit 7. The sticker's a little bit off. There we go. Thank you. And you can blow it back up. It actually was nice that way because you could see it if you could do that. Yeah, that's great. Can you identify this, Ted?
Yes, again, a sales summary, this time for 2018.
And what were your total sales in 2018?
Total sales were 322,545.
And again, this is at that site, at the site in Brattleboro, correct?
That is strictly Brattleboro, yes.
All right. And what was the customer count there?
It was 1,809.
Now that seems a little bit down from 2017 and 2016. Is that right?
That is correct.
Is there a reason that, well, let me back up before I ask you that. The same questions that I asked you before about the customer count and whether or not that reflects the actual amount of traffic on the property, what would your answer be to that?
Could you repeat that again, Sam? I'm sorry.
Does the customer count accurately reflect the total number of people that came onto your property in 2018?
No, it does not.
So again, similar to what you were saying about previous years, there were non-paying personnel that came onto your property?
Correct.
And would it be true that virtually none of those people walked to your property?
That is correct.
And in terms of the paying customers that went onto your property, how many of those walked to your property?
None.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted to talk now about why your numbers dipped a little here for 2018. Do you know of a reason why that might be true?
Yes. Unfortunately, the manager of that location, who had been with me for 20 years, decided to move south to be with his daughter. Him and his wife decided to move. So that was back in October. He resigned. So, this only reflects, basically, up until October sales.
All right. And why did you replace him?
We tried to replace him. Unfortunately, in my business, we deal with a lot of specialty products, which you really have to know what you're talking about, know what you're selling. We get contractors, homeowners asking a lot of questions about products, what to use. And unfortunately, we were not able to find somebody to replace him. I wish I had somebody, at our other location that I could have moved up, but we did not.
All right. So what about, 2019, you still haven't replaced him, right?
No, we did not.
All right. So in 2019, did that aspect of your operation sort of cease?
Yeah, we ended up having to basically shut down the day-to-day retail end of things. We still use the yard as a stocking yard. We, had contractors, make appointments to meet us. We would load and unload their trucks, at certain scheduled times.
When you unloaded and loaded their trucks, how did you do that? You talked about the cranes that load your trucks. Do you have any other types of vehicles on site that load and unload contractors' trucks?
Yeah, we have a forklift there. Even today, there's still a forklift there to load and unload.
And does that go backwards?
Yes. Yeah.
Does it make that irritating beeping sound?
Yes, they have backup alarms. All our trucks have backup alarms as well.
So all of the vehicles that we saw in Exhibit 4 there, did those also have backup alarms?
Yes, they did.
And do contractors' trucks typically have backup alarms?
Most do, yes.
And when contractors' trucks would come in to pick up material, even in 2009, you were talking about how contractors continued to come onto your property to pick up material in 2019, right?
Yes, they do. Yep.
And do they turn around in forward gear, or do they back up and get out of there? How do they do that?
No, I mean, depends on the vehicle, but yes, most of them have to put it in reverse to, leave.
And then you get that beeping sound?
Correct.
So again, the contractors in 2019, we're talking about 2019 here because we've gone through some of the other years. Do they come in those same types of vehicles to
Yes,
pick
they
up
do.
the large vehicles? Can we, Andrew, can we jump to Exhibit 15 for, I'm sorry. Yeah, can we jump to Exhibit 15 for a moment?
Give me a sec. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it'll be a picture of a truck, just so you know. That's Exhibit 14. Exhibit 14 is about 11 pages. Yeah, that's it. There you go. Thank you very much. Do you recognize that, Ted?
Yes, this is David Bell's truck.
And what company does David Bell run?
That's Belco Excavating.
And is he a customer of yours?
Yes, he is.
Does he do business on your property in 2019?
Yes, he's been there several times, 2019.
And when he comes onto your property, is this the type of truck that he brings onto your property?
On occasion, yes. This certain truck has been on the property several times.
And this, obviously, I assume, has that backup beeping noise?
Yes, that one does.
I just wanted to give the DRB a sense of the type of vehicles that some of these contractors are driving onto your property. Now, Mr. Bell, where does he live?
He lives on Sunset Lake Road.
And he's got a construction company, is that right?
That is correct.
How long has Mr. Bell been a customer of yours?
I want to say at least since 2010.
Okay, so basically through the period of time that you've owned it, up to and including 2019, is that right?
Correct, yes.
And is this vehicle sort of typical of the type of vehicles that construction contractors might drive onto your property?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'd like to go back talking a little bit more about specifically 2019. Andrew, if we could go to Exhibit 8. And while Andrew's doing that, Ted, I wanted to ask you, sorry, I meant to ask you this. We were looking at sales receipts. Yeah, we were looking at those sales receipts earlier. Did you get a sales receipt for or a sales summary for 2019?
Unfortunately, I do not. I cannot provide that due to all the transactions were run out of my Massachusetts location. So I could not provide a 2019 sales report.
Okay, so we don't have that data.
Unfortunately, we did not.
But when you say the sales were run out of your Massachusetts, I just want to break that down for a second. Does that mean that no sales took place? I mean, you just testified that, for example, David Bell was on your property in 2019 buying stuff.
Correct. Basically,
So,
we would run the transaction at our Massachusetts location and bring him a copy of the receipt.
okay, so what we were looking at, those exhibits with the sales transactions, those were specific to the Brattleboro property, correct?
That is correct.
And the program that you have, are you able to generate a similar report for the Brattleboro area for 2019?
I cannot, no.
You cannot. Okay. Did I ask you to try?
Yes, you did.
All right. So let's go. Yeah. So Exhibit 8. Thank you. What is Exhibit 8?
This is of a truck that we actually sold last year from that location because we were no longer using it.
Okay. So again, we're talking about some of the business that was conducted on your property in 2019, the Belco kind of construction people coming on. Now you sold a truck on the property as well?
Yes, this truck we sold from that location.
And it says Shanahan Construction Supply. Was this also used by you at one time?
Yes, that's a tank truck.
What's a tank truck? What does that mean?
Basically, it moves heavy precast. So the tanks, septic tanks.
Okay. How much weight can a truck like this carry?
Typically 77,000 pounds, most of them.
Not just your like half-ton pickup then?
No, it is not.
And did you in fact sell this out of that location in 2019?
Yes,
yeah. Was this truck on site when you sold it?
Yes, it was.
Can we go to Exhibit 9? If slide down there. Yeah, thanks. What's this, Ted?
This is brick from that yard.
And when was this taken?
This was 2019 as well.
So is this just representative of the type of materials that you were selling there?
Yes, it is.
There's also pallets of bricks just to the right. It looks like it's wrapped up in something. Is that what that is?
Yes, yep, correct.
Okay, so it's not as though you just had one pallet of bricks in 2019 or something.
No, not at all.
All right. Can we go to Exhibit 10, please? All right. And what is this a picture of?
This is a picture of me standing in that yard just last Friday.
I was going to ask you when it was taken. Who took this?
You did.
Okay. And this is what would happen in this yard first historically, and well, just over the period of time that you've owned it. What was this area used for?
Storage of material.
Is this the material the contractors would pick up?
That is correct.
So like the cast, the bricks, the sand, mortar, whatever it is?
Correct, yep.
Was it empty like this in 20? Now this was taken last Friday, right?
Correct.
Was it empty like this in 2019?
No, it was not.
And what did it look like? And you don't have a picture of 2019, unfortunately, do you?
No, I do not.
And what was in this yard in 2019?
We still had a bunch of material there. We were trying to provide the contractors in the area that are used to using us, with material. So, we maintained, our inventory there.
And why is it empty?
I entered a contract with Jason Evans Construction on the sale of the property. So we started moving some of the material out of that yard in anticipation of a sale.
Okay. And we'll look at the contract in a moment. But this was taken last Friday. Well, let's look at some of the other pictures. Are you still doing business out of this lot even today?
Yep.
All right. Can we go to 11, Andrew? What is that a photograph of?
11 is picture of a couple of our trucks, and as you can see, there is still inventory in the front of the yard up against the fence.
Can you blow that up at all, Andrew? Okay, so where do you mean by inventory? I see some trucks.
Yeah, you can see the telephone pole in front of the red Mack.
Yep.
If you follow the fence line, you will see we still have material in that yard there.
Okay, got it. Over there. Oh, that's the right. Okay. And when was this photograph taken?
This was last Friday.
That crane truck that's there, is that the crane truck that you sold?
No, that truck is still currently there, and we still use that truck.
What do you use it for?
Delivering of material.
Okay. Now, can we go to 12 if we could, Andrew? Maybe make that a little bit smaller. Okay, thanks. What do we got here?
Again, it's a picture of that truck.
And are you currently delivering material with that truck out of that location?
Yes, we do.
And if we can go, see. Oh, sorry, when was that taken? I don't know if I asked you.
This was last Friday.
Last Friday also. Okay. Yeah, we can go to 13. Thanks, Andrew. What's that?
So this is what we call a ground thawing machine. We rent them out during the winter months. It's a way that, we get income during our slow season. What it does is it basically pulls frost out of the ground so contractors that are working can work through the frost.
All right. And is this, so this rental business, is that run out of the Brattleboro site?
Yes, it is. Yep.
You still do that?
Yes, we do.
And that's in addition to historically the materials that you sold to contractors and so forth. You also had this rental thing to try and bring in money during the winter months also?
That is correct. Yes.
Has your, since you've owned the property, again, we're focused on that period of time, has your use of the property as a construction supply business ever been discontinued for a period of 12 months or more?
No.
No. Has it ever been discontinued in use at all in that use?
No, it has not.
Was there ever a time historically, even before you owned the property, where the property was discontinued in the use of a construction supply site?
The only time I know of is just before I bought the property in 2010. I believe it was sitting idle for around 4 months.
Okay. All right. But nothing close to a year or anything like that?
No.
Now, over the last, let's say 5 years, so going back to 2015 or so, can you estimate the number of people per day on that site that you would have? All the way up to today. I mean, the whole time period.
The whole time period, I would say on an average 20 to 25 people, 30 people, somewhere in that range.
All right. And are there, let's just talk about, and that, I'm sorry, that includes 2019, is that true? Right
Yeah,
up to-
that's true. Yeah, I mean, it certainly has slowed down in 2019. We aren't using it as a retail location, but on an average, yes.
Right. And now, in 2020, you testified that you cleared out a bunch of material, right? In anticipation of
Yeah.
selling this to Mr. Evans?
Correct.
Okay. So, I mean, so the board knows your business has slowed down since you cleared out some of that material. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Yeah. But over the period, the historical period of time since the zoning regulations were enacted, you had, your estimate is 20 to 30 customers a day coming in there?
Yes,
And then you also had non-paying personnel?
that is correct.
So just quickly, we're almost at the end here. The neighborhood that your property is located in, are there other industries in that neighborhood?
Yes, there's quite a few other industries. I mean, you do have the town yard right above us, which has, a lot of construction equipment, dump trucks, those type things. You also have Good Enough Rubbish Removal and Zaluzny's gravel pit just down the road on Mercury Drive. Over the
gravel pit, do they, Zaluzny, do they have trucks that come up onto South Main Street?
Yes, large dump trucks, even tractor trailer trucks as well.
And who else, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Who else does business down there?
On Cotton Mill Hill, you have the bread manufacturing location, and you also have Sir Sosimo, which is just down over the bank as well. That goes by all the time.
All right. And what about, did you mention, are there any other industries that use South Main Street go past your property?
Just the rubbish removal company, like I said, Good Enough Rubbish, Zaluzny, the town.
Who's the rubbish removal? I'm sorry.
Good Enough Rubbish Removal.
All right. My hearing must be going bad. Okay. All right. So what's traffic like in the neighborhood?
There's a lot of heavy traffic. Besides, you also have school bus traffic as well.
When I was out there on Friday with you, was there traffic going by?
Yes, there was quite a few trucks.
What's noise? What is the noise level like when those trucks go by?
It's pretty loud.
And when your customers enter and leave the property, do they go up and down what's their exit? What is their, how do they go? I mean, do they contribute to that noise along South Main Street?
I'm sure they attribute to some, but typically, you know, the truck traffic that we get is coming off of, you know, Canal Street onto Fairground Road. And again, this property is located right at the corner of Fairground and South Main. So, you know, it's maybe 100 feet on South Main Street.
Okay. And what are you planning to do with the property, Ted?
Well, I'm hoping to sell it.
And are you in fact under purchase and sale contract for the sale?
Yes.
And looking at Exhibit 14, what is that?
This is the purchase and sale contract with Mr. Evans.
And if you can, do you know what the date of that was?
This was.
I'll give you a hint. It's on page 7 for time.
Okay. 12/5 of 2019.
Okay. And are you still hoping to sell it to Mr. Evans?
Yes.
And again, this is why you largely cleared that lot we saw back there with the picture of you in it?
That is correct.
In anticipation of this sale?
Correct.
Are you selling, you're not selling any personal property with this, right?
No, just the building and land.
Okay, right. None of that construction material and stuff. That's
no.
Okay. Anything further you want to tell the board, Ted?
Basically, the only thing I would like to add is you know, I was kind of confused as to why this focused on 2019. Yes, I understand there was, you know, a reduction in use in that property. We've always used that property, but that property's also always been used, even way back in the 50s, as a commercial location. And, you know, for, you know, actually my hardship in 2018 of losing my manager, we'd still be using that location in that this type currently today if he was still here. So, you know, I hope we don't just focus on 2019's lack of activity as the decision.
Well, that's actually a good point. And I just want to conclude by saying that to the board, in my memorandum of law, I point out that under Vermont law, if there's any, that there's really, well, first of all, the zoning regulation itself doesn't say when you should be looking at the intensity level. So if the board, I believe, would not be legally correct if it focused its efforts in looking at the intensity level on such a short period of time. The regulation just mentions intensity level. It doesn't say when you're supposed to measure that and over how long a period of time. Vermont law is really clear that any ambiguity in a zoning regulation has to be interpreted in favor of the landowner and the applicant. And if you look at the discontinuance of use law, not looking at intensity, and I get that, but there is law looking at when you look at whether or not a use has been discontinued, you don't look at the lightest intensity of use. You look at the heaviest intensity of use to see whether or not that's been discontinued. I get that that's not exactly intensity, it's more abandonment, but there's not really case law on intensity in Vermont, and by analogy, that's really what we have. So I think you really got to look at a pretty long period of time when you're talking about intensity of use. And I think if the board focuses on looking at one particular time or one particular year, I think that's going to be arbitrary. And with that, I'd turn it over. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
James, could I ask a couple of questions of Mr. Whalen?
Yes.
So since your manager left, how many appointments have you had on average in a week to have people come and pick up materials?
Honestly, some days, there would be none, but then other days we'd have 3 to 5.
So maybe like 15 to 20 a week?
That would be fair assessment, yes.
Okay, great. And who's been working on the site? Have you had office workers there or security people, or is it staffed as needed?
So it's just staffed as needed. We would send up either myself or one of my employees from Massachusetts to load up, a contractor.
And the salespeople it's the folks in Turner's Falls who are doing the actual sales?
That is correct. The sales transactions are from Turner's Falls.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think I understand that Mr. Shriver wants to present testimony as well. Is that right?
Yes, you're right. I want to do Jason Evans and then Pam Burrell and then Chris Long. I will
Okay.
try to get through Jason Evans quick enough so the other two can make their statements.
Okay, before you start, really quickly, I just want to check to see if any of the board members have any questions for Mr. Whalen. Okay, Sandy, whenever you're ready.
So I'm Sandy Shriver and Phillips Dunn Shriver
Maya
and
had a
Carroll.
question. Maya had a question.
Sorry. Who is that?
It's Maya.
Oh, pardon me. Go ahead.
I have a couple of questions. And I'm sorry to be holding things up, but while I have them here, is it possible to do, we have these nice reports for 2016, 17, and 18. Is it possible to do a report from the Massachusetts office of what sales you made that were picked up in Brattleboro?
I tried to achieve that. The only issue I have is it really doesn't say that it's a Brattleboro transaction. I would have to go through, daily slips in order to find each contractor that actually picked that up, and that would be, an undertaking.
Okay. The other question I had to do with one of the pictures, and I think it was 5, exhibit 5. It's the one that shows all that the red one, the one above that one. I'm just trying to get a feel for how many houses there are. You can see there's a car parked, and then I see 1, 2, at least 3 houses. So I assume there are 4 houses right surrounding your building. Is that correct?
In this picture, yes, there's 3 or 4 houses there.
So, but there are actually 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 houses surrounding your property?
I'm unsure of the exact number, but there are residential housing there.
Right, and you're right across the street from Marlborough Road, right?
Marlborough Road? No.
Marlborough Avenue.
Avenue, yes.
Avenue.
Down the hill.
I always get those two confused.
Yep. Nope,
Okay,
that's
so
good.
I'm just getting it in my mind that this is a residential neighborhood.
Yep.
Thank you.
I think I saw one other person put their hand up. Yes, Catherine. Catherine, if you're talking, you're muted. You're still muted. Just click the microphone icon. Yep.
Got it. Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
I never got any paperwork in regard to this. I have no idea why Brian rejected it in the first place. I have no paper, no information of why he rejected it.
Since we're not going to finish this tonight and go to deliberative session next week, we'll have time to consider the paper between now and then. Brian,
All right.
can you email your I think I saw you send it around, but can you just make sure it gets to Catherine and just email it around to everybody anyway? So we have all the documents?
Yeah, so I think the request was that I print out everybody's documents, not just the ones from the department, and distribute those. So I think I'll give hard copies of everything that's been submitted for this particular hearing.
Okay. Ian,
Just to be sure, the document that I got, am I correct, is Brian's decision was of February 21st, 2020. Is that correct?
The ZA determination?
The document I got is with a head, the header is Brattleboro Planning Services, and the date is February 21st, 2020. Is that your determination? It ends, this proposal does not meet the standard. It is more intense and less compatible with the district. It should be denied. Is this the decision that has triggered the applicant coming forward at this meeting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
okay. Anyone else? Okay, Sandy, take it away.
All right, so I'm Sandy Shriver, also known as Alexander Shriver. We are operating with a laptop that's battery has gone out, unfortunately. So we're going to try to work off of the same microphone here. I've got Jason Evans with me, and I'm going to ask you, Jason, to state your name for the record. Jason Evans. Now, will people say whether they heard him well?
He better holler. He's got to speak up.
Jason, you're going to have to speak up. Jason, where do you live? I live in Somerset, Vermont. And have you lived here all of your life?
We're not getting Sandy.
It's not working?
Is there any way we can maybe move? Oh, that sounds a little better. Let's try again. Try again.
Jason, did you attend Brattleboro Union High School? Yes, I did. So 92. And what is your business? And what do you do?
Sandy, I'm sorry, we can't hear him. We're just not getting a good feed. I wonder, I mean, I'm gonna cut us off in 20 minutes. I wonder if it might make sense to bring him back in 1 week's time and do your other two witnesses now. I don't know.
I don't particularly want to do that. I'm actually not going to be in Brattleboro a week from now. Let's see what happens if I move to a different room and Jason just talks into the microphone.
Okay.
We'll be right back. So, Jason, can you hear me? Oh, he's pulling up his phone. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
That's great. That's much better.
Jason, how many employees do you have?
I have, I think, 7 employees right now.
And are you familiar with the Shanahan construction site
Very
between
familiar.
2015 and 2018?
Yes.
And you went there frequently to buy products?
Correct.
Okay. And what big projects has your construction company worked on?
Big projects. I helped John Brunel create Black Mountain Estates with all the infrastructure, the buildings, the roads, the sewer, the water, the foundations.
Did you work on the ski jump?
I worked on the ski jump in Brattleboro, donate my time to help make that event happen every year.
And do you work with the BUHS Career Center program?
I am working with the Career Center program. It's a co-op for students to learn the trades that I offer.
And do you operate your business in the summer or all year long?
My business is year round, but of course it's construction, so it slows down in the winter time.
Are people getting this testimony completely?
Yes.
Thank you, James. And where is your business's current headquarters?
It's at my home in Dummerston.
And is that on the main strip or is it up in the hills?
No, I live out in the hills.
Okay. And so why do you want to move your business to Brattleboro?
It's more centrally located for my business.
And you'll decrease driving and pollution and noise by being centrally located?
Correct.
Okay. So let's talk about how you're going to use this site. In a given week, how many times are you or your employees likely to come to the site?
That will vary. Maybe Monday mornings we meet there and make a plan. We may go there in the morning to pick up some materials to go to the job. But most of my employees have their own business personal vehicles. So once we locate to a job, I work all over southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire. A lot of times they will go home at the end of the day. They will have no reason to go back to the facility, to 529 South Main. So it could be, there could be days when we're not there at all. There could be days when there's 3, 4, 5 vehicles in and out of there.
So you think the biggest amount you'd have in any one day would be 3 or 4, 5 vehicles?
That would be my best guess right now.
And how are you going to use the site?
How are you going to use the site? So I will keep construction materials there, culverts, pipe, very similar to what Ted had there. I do concrete foundations, so I have forms to build these foundations. So they may be there if they are not on the site, but throughout the year, they a lot of times bounce from job to job to job and not necessarily end up back there.
And so on some days, those vehicles wouldn't come to your site at all.
Correct.
And do customers come to your headquarters?
I wouldn't think too often at all. If a customer did come there, it may be somebody inquiring on our services.
But mostly you meet with your customers at their homes.
Correct. Usually you meet at the site, the location where you're going to do the work.
Right. And are you going to store equipment or trucks at the site?
There will be some of that, yes. As for most of the equipment, that is at a job throughout the whole year. It goes from job to job to job. I may have a couple dump trucks there. I have 3 dump trucks right now. One of my neighbors runs one of them. He lives in Dummerston by me. That truck will probably stay at his location just for ease of operation. And as I said, my guys have trucks that they go home with. So there may be a few vehicles there, but not many more than that.
And so when you park your vehicles or equipments on the site, are you going to put them in the front of the building or in the back?
My intention with the site is everything can be kind of consolidated in the back where it's really not that visible, especially this time of year with the leaves on the trees.
Okay, so that's visible. Well, what about backing up and the smell of trucks, is there going to be as much of that as there was during Shanahan Construction's time period?
I wouldn't say not nearly as much.
And again, that's because you only have 3 trucks and a relatively small amount of equipment.
Yes.
Are you going to do any actual construction on the site on South Main Street?
I don't believe any of that will be needed there.
Okay. And before I leave this point, we talked about backup beepers. Do you remember hearing those at Shanahan's time period?
The echo's killing me. Well, I didn't catch that question.
Yeah, when you visited it, when Shanahan owned it, there was a lot of backup noise, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And will your vehicles have similar noise?
Yes.
But will it be as frequent as what Ted described?
I wouldn't imagine anywhere near.
Okay. Talked about hours of operation. In your original application, you talked about running the business until 5 o'clock. But are you now going to limit your hours to only 7 to 4:30, which was Ed's hours?
Yes, that is what we discussed.
Okay, and also 7 to noon on Saturdays.
Yes.
So your current plan is to not be open more hours than Ted was open?
That's correct.
Okay. And you will have one employee in the office, is that right?
Most likely, and I don't think it's going to be 5 days a week. It might be 3 or 4.
Okay. And who is that?
Marcy Lund.
She's a bookkeeper?
Yes.
And do you also already have a license from the town to operate your business there?
I do.
I don't have the exhibits in front of me, but that is the one exhibit that Jason Evans was going to submit. So that'll be in the exhibit pile. Are you also going to try to run a retail operation from the site?
Selling materials like Ted's? No.
Nope. How about vinyl sign sales?
Part of my business is vinyl signs, lettering vehicles. That's a small percentage of my sales. So I may do some of that there, yes.
And if you did that, would that be inside the building?
Yes, that usually takes place inside. You design the work on a computer, you print it out on a plotter, and you apply it to the vehicle, which would all be done inside the building.
Is there any noise or smell associated with that?
None at all.
Okay. And would the number of customers you anticipate for that vinyl sign business be nearly as many as Ted had?
No.
And now, do you have any idea what your customers base is on that? How many customers a day do you sell vinyl signs to?
I don't know. I mean, you might have 1 to 5 a month.
Okay. Not nearly as much as Ted had in any given day.
Yes.
All right. We've already talked a little bit about South Main Street. Is that your experience, that there's a lot of heavy traffic and equipment on South Main Street?
It's very industrial like on South Main Street. You sit there at any given time and there'll be dump trucks or tractor trailers driving by there.
Okay. And one slightly different question. You're operating out of your home in Dummerston. Have any of your neighbors ever complained about your noise or construction vehicles coming in and out of your house? at least to you?
No, they have not.
And on the interest of being quick, and that's all the testimony I have for Jason. I guess I'll ask one last summary question, which is, do you feel as though your intended use of the property would be nearly as intense as what Ted has described?
No, I'd imagine it'd be more like a ghost town compared to what Ted had there.
That's all I have, James.
Okay, any members of the board have any questions for Mr. Evans? Okay, I don't see anybody. Oh, sorry, Maya, go ahead.
Sorry, I seem to be full of questions tonight. Did I hear you say, Mr. Evans, did I hear you correctly when did you say you were changing your hours from your application? Because originally it was 6:30 to 5?
I thought it was 7 to 5.
Well, the application said 6:30.
Yeah, I think we were changing it to 7 to 4:30.
Maya, the answer is yes. The current plan is to limit the hours to the same hours that Ted operated.
So that'll be 7 to 4:30.
Yes.
Yes.
And I don't know whether Mr. Evans, not Mr. Evans, Mr. Whalen, operated on Saturdays.
My understanding was that he did operate on Saturdays. Until noon.
Yes, we did.
Okay, thank you.
Any other members of the board have any questions? Ian, go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure, was I correct in hearing the testimony of Mr. Whalen? I think he spoke specifically of opening the gate at 6:30. So, I mean, maybe we're just quibbling about a half an hour here, but that was what I had remembered from Mr. Whalen's testimony. There was a reference to maybe a tractor trailer waiting and that the gate was open at 6:30. Is that correct?
Yes, there was many occasions. Well, we would arrive usually right around 6:30 to get the store open and get everything up and running. Many occasions we would have a tractor trailer truck waiting at the gate for us to open so we could unload the truck.
Okay, thank you. A question to our chair, Mr. Valenti. Yeah?
Yeah, I'm here.
As members of the Development Review Board, are we supposed to think about the potential use of a space? What we have is in this case, am I clear on who the applicant is? Is it Mr. Evans or is it Mr. Whalen? Can I clarify who's actually submitting it?
I mean, they both want the sale to go through. Evans
We're
is buying
joint
out
applicants.
Whalen, and the question is, as it goes from one non-conforming use to another, whether the intensity is going up.
And so I would ask, as a board member, since I do value your chairmanship and giving us advice, I'm trying to understand the site as, and again, Mr. Evans, this is not to say that you're not giving a truthful testimony, but I'm wondering if some of the appeal for this site is the actual ability and the space to allow you to grow your business. And so that as much as your testimony is accurate, and I have no doubt that it is, that there's a huge possibility here that if we overturn the zoning administrator's decision and allow the non-conforming use to go forward, that what's being proposed of the intensity of use, because of the nature of the space. And James, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Is this within our purview as board members to think about beyond what the applicants are saying? how the intensity of the use, just because of the space and the availability of its location, may actually, perhaps without their own planning, have more intense use over time. Is that something I should think about or even raise? Is that something we should deliberate about?
I'm not certain, but why don't you ask him the question? We'll take the answer, and we have an entire week to think about whether it's relevant. And I
I guess
suspect with two attorneys here, they might want to weigh in too. But since we have
I
only
guess,
2 minutes, why don't we just
oh,
get
I'm sorry.
Mr. Evans' answer? Are you planning to grow that business? And if so, how would the use change?
I don't think that facility would allow me to grow it to 30 employees to meet roughly what Ted had coming in and out of there a day. So therefore, no, I don't believe it's going to grow anywhere near that. I'm pretty content with under 10 employees for my business. I just need to separate my business from my home and make it more accessible for all my employees and my customers, my customer base, for me to access them and materials that are nearby in Brattleboro.
Thank you.
Okay, real quick. I'm sorry to be sort of bossing people around here. Are there any members of the public who wanted to speak about this application who are here right now?
Pam, that's you.
Yes.
Okay. And Brian, did you want to ask Mr. Evans questions as well?
No, I'm all set.
Okay.
This is Michelle. I also wish to speak.
Okay, hold on 1 second, okay? Sandy, is Pam a witness or is she a member of the public?
I think she's both. She's one of my witnesses. She lives across the street from the site.
Okay. How long would her testimony require?
Pam, how long you think you're going to want to talk?
Not long.
Yeah, I think you can get it in.
Okay.
Okay, so what I want to do, Pam and Michelle, if I gave you each 2 minutes, could you say your piece?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Pam, that's okay with you?
Yes.
Sandy, is it okay if I just let them rip without doing question and answer?
That's basically what I was going to do.
Okay. I'm just picking Pam because you're on top, and then when Pam's done, Michelle, if you just go right into your comment, I'd appreciate it. Members of the board, this doesn't mean you can't ask questions. I just want to make sure the public gets it in.
Okay, I live exactly across the street from Shanahan's. I stand with the business. I'd like to see the business in there. The traffic that's on South Main Street is horrendous. Between Goodenough, Franklin, all the towns that come to the pit, Sasasamos and Saluzny, it's very loud. The business across the street is nothing compared to what we have to deal with on South Main Street. So me and my husband both stand with the business. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, go ahead.
Why, thank you for your time, and I want to thank the board for serving and the chair for doing such a good job at keeping us all in line here. I and my husband own that property since November 2013. I do not live there. My youngest sister lives there, but I visit there a lot. And I have her feedback to bring to this meeting. As Pam, hi Pam, mentioned, I also am strongly in favor of Jason Evans taking over this property. For one thing, it's exactly in line with what has always happened at the property in its history, and in some ways is much more moderate, because there is no retail traffic, and he's really only bringing his equipment in and out before he goes to jobs. And my sister finds no problem whatsoever with having had Shanahan, and I thank Mr. Whalen for this, as a very good neighbor. They were always considerate, and caring for their neighbors and the neighborhood. And there's certainly nothing to be concerned about from the point of view of the folks living in the house across the street. I do have to admit that I am familiar and acquainted with Mr. Evans through the Wyndham Solid Waste Management District. He does work there. I represent our common town, Dummerston, to that district, and I am also the board of the voted representatives chair. So I would say that there are only 2 thumbs up for this business to be there and to stay there as a business and not change what's happening, but really continue the kind of business that's happening. I think it would be good for Brattleboro and for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any members of the board or Brian, or does anybody else? Well, sorry, excuse me. Do any members of the board have any follow-up questions? Brian, is there anything you'd like? Oh, excuse me. Let me just see if Brian wants to respond to any of this, Sandy, and then I'll get to you.
Yeah, so I would like to respond quickly. I think we got a lot of evidence that makes a much clearer picture of what has gone before, what the actual prior use was, what uses have been discontinued, and what's proposed. And I think the level of disagreement between my determination and Mr. Evans is much less than it originally appeared, and I will make a new determination outlining those minor differences and submit it to the board by the end of the week, and also submit it to the applicants.
That would potentially moot this, is what you're saying?
I think it would just matter how the board might condition to ensure that intensity didn't increase in future, whether the permission ran with the business or the next property owner, or you put specific limitations on how the property could be used to maintain intensity.
And I very much appreciate you getting right down to brass tacks there. That's very helpful. Sam, I'll recognize you in 1 second, but Sandy was trying to get a word in first, so let me just hear from
I was
him.
going to let Chris Long speak for a minute, but Chris, are you okay with not speaking? Chris, do you want to speak or not?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know if you guys
Chris, I
can hear
think
me or
we've
not.
covered everything.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
So,
James, I'm good.
Thank you, Sandy. Sam, you wanted to say something?
Well, yeah, it was just actually in connection with Ms. Burrell's testimony. I did have one exhibit, and I can just make a representation as to what that says, or if Ms. Burrell is available. It's identified as P. Burrell Exhibit 1. And I don't know if we can pull that up if we've lost Andrew at this point. But I can make a representation, James, if you want, as to what that exhibit is.
I mean,
Burrell 1, it'll be all the way at the end after Mr. Whalen's exhibits. Yeah. Keep. No, maybe it's up. It's yes, that one. Ms. Burrell, are you still there?
Yes.
We'll take notice that this is the view from her house, if that's what you're trying to.
That's all I'm getting in, is that this is the view from Ms. Burrell's driveway looking towards the property in question, just to give the board a view of how close in proximity her residence is to the Shanahan construction.
Got it.
Yes, that's the correct picture.
Okay, thank you. I am very mindful of the time. I don't want to cut off any members of the board, but I think what Brian said is pretty dispositive and will allow us to get to the next stage, which is better for the applicant. Does not appear to be contrary to any of the wishes of the public who came here to comment, and will enable us to get to a fast and final disposition. Does anybody on the board have a problem with packing it in so we can get to that next stage? Okay, I'm very glad to see that none of you do. With that in mind, Brian, forgive me for my lack of parliamentary knowledge here, but are we actually adjourning or are we simply waiting until our deliberative
Mr.
session
Chair.
next week?
We're just closing out this meeting and everything has been continued, including the hearings. So, yeah.
All right, so I move to close this meeting, continue for 1 week until the hearing on the 24th. I very much appreciate everybody's patience and also the members of this board. Tonight, we will give you time and a half pay for your regular rate. So who says there are no benefits to serving on the development review board?
Thank you all very much.
All right, just somebody make that motion, please.
I so
Okay.
move.
Myas moves. Let me get a second. Thanks,
I
Ian.
second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for the careful presentation of evidence, which I think ultimately made this much smoother, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Have a nice night, everybody.